And we're live with the Zone Control podcast. I'm Louis. That one there is Sin. And, we're live with our MSI edition of the podcast, which, having an edition with the first edition of the podcast is kind of nice.
There's
Um,
100% special editions
yeah,
so far.
it kind of reminds me of the channels that are like at some point got like 10 subscribers and made
10
10,
subscriber
10,
special.
10 subscriber special, and then got off of that 20 subscribers, so they made a 20 subscriber special, and then just did subscriber specials for eternity.
Every time somebody gets a subscriber, give away in the description, giving away a PS3 to a new subscriber every time. MSI, as you said, is going to be the focus of this one. It's been probably the most interesting MSI there's been. I mean, not really has there been a competitive MSI so close to this since season 5, the first MSI.
That wasn't even that
Fnatic
close.
taking Fnatic took SKT to 5 games. The final was 5 games. It's pretty close still.
I mean, yeah, technically you have 3 competitive teams, I guess.
So this time there's obviously been a lot more competition. Everybody's picking up games against everybody, but at the same time, it's that we need to see how it's going to be in playoffs. We could just see 2 teams get 3-0'd.
Yeah, honestly, it's not even that far fetched to think that, but at the same time, let's start at the base. Let's start at the play-ins. So
Yeah.
well, I do wanted to talk about that at least a bit. So we got that out of the way. I'm a huge fan of the LCL, of course. Have casted an entire split basically with magical every game. I don't know. Was kind of fun, but ever
Yeah.
since I like it.
I think with the group stages, you can't be too disappointed with how Gambit played in terms of the results. But then you look a little bit closer at the games, and then it's just like, this is the team that this is pretty much the best that Russia has to offer in terms of their innate players, the players from Russia. You got obviously like Diamond Prox, legendary jungler Edward in support, and this team dominated most of Russia.
Yeah.
But then you look at what happened in the playing stage, and they lost so many early games. They lost so much pressure in those early phases. By the time they got towards team fights, they were maybe able to get one fight and then win the game off of it. But they were better at punishing their opponent's mistakes than their opponents were at punishing their mistakes. And that's really what came to be the difference.
Yeah, I just remember the game against Ascension, where basically Ascension won like 4 team fights at Baron in a row.
Yeah.
Didn't get Baron. Gambit wins one, takes Baron, takes game. And I think that is kind of what divides the play-in teams. It's basically one bunch knows how to end a game and the other one doesn't. Both bunches do a bunch of mistakes though.
It's that's really where you're going to find the most mistakes in terms of things like resetting tempo, movement around the map, the ability to pick people off and they make mistakes, they face check brushes. So you can punish mistakes, but you got to capitalize on those. You got to realize, okay, we made one pick. Now we've got to use that to snowball into vision pressure around this area of the map, shut them out entirely, deny them resources, choke them out of the game. And unfortunately, they'll try and do that sometimes. Sometimes they won't even realize that's what they've got to do, unfortunately, for some teams. But they'll try and make an effort to do that. And in doing that, make their own mistakes that get punished right back. And it ends up being this game of catch where they're trying to see who can throw harder.
Yeah, I guess that is one way to put it. Gambit still looking relatively iffy in some of those matches. And honestly, I'd like to see them take more of the Virtus Pro approach from earlier. Virtus Pro I think made it to last MSI, or at least to the
they were in the playing
wild
stage
card.
last time.
Yeah, and they had been playing a very methodical style. We're playing a lot more about choking out and everything. And they had some troubles. They weren't perfect at it, but they at least tried to play a good game. As opposed to Gambit, who I guess is kind of to some extent aware of their flaws, and to some extent you have to commend that. But at the same time, you have to try a bit more. And I think Gambit isn't really the team who's gonna try to be they're gonna try to win Russia, but they're not gonna try really to be the best play-in region by far.
Yeah, I don't think that Russia everybody looks back at Albus Nox and goes, what made Albus Nox great? And Albus Nox didn't play to a style that they go, we're going to just play to the highest level of competitive and do these Korean strats. They made their own strats. They played like a Nivea Poppy and were willing to make plays and make picks throughout that. They played what made them strong to a high degree. It was Licrit pulling out things like Brand constantly, which he was very strong on. And he was able to utilize on their style. And nobody else was able to deal with it, especially in the play-in stage. You got to the group stage of Worlds, and some people were able to deal with it. They even took a game off of the Rocks Tigers at the time. So,
and I mean,
comparing that to this, it's just there's a difference between being the best you can be with a subpar style and being just the worst version of Korean teams.
That's completely fair, and I'm the last one to be against opportunistic play. It's honestly my favorite thing. I'm a play-by-play caster, I think, in certain ways, but at the same time, you need to know when a mistake. You need to know when a mistake is brewing, and you need to be able to, take back your intuition a bit, and play a bit more methodical. Maybe establish some vision pressure, and
to go towards where we're leading to with this is like you can compare it to the Gigabyte Marines as well. Both Albus Nox and Gigabyte Marines, two of the most successful wildcard teams ever in terms of their. Well, I say ever. Obviously, you can look back at season 2. Technically, the wildcards from the LMS, they were the wildcard teams, and they obviously went on to. We saw TPA win that world championship, but since the LCS format and the wildcard format of the major regions. The two most successful wildcard teams have been Albus Nox Luna and Gigabyte Marines.
Yeah.
Gigabyte Marines, they made people play their own style. They pulled out things like Nocturne. They made weird lane swaps, and they had their own ideas and plans, and they made somebody else conform to that and make them have to react to what they were doing. Albus Nox did something similar, where they brought people down to their own level and made them scrap with them on the ground floor, and that was what really worked for those teams. And we've not really seen a wildcard team like that that's tried to make people play on their level. That was the difference between this MSI and the last one.
Let's talk about some of the other teams. Honestly, Ascension was...
what we expected, I have to say.
What? Say again?
What we expected, I have to say. When you take the top region out of the GPL and then take the second best team, this is the reason Vietnam became considered above the rest of the GPL.
Yeah, and Vietnam was even competitive with the Marines and EVOS, and they were both better than Ascension by a long shot.
It's
kind of a tragedy. The GPL they're always taking out the best teams out of the region, and then they're bottoming out again. But at the same time,
it's going to be a while to recover.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can't really fault those regions from trying to separate themselves from the GPL, because honestly, Thailand is not bringing the heat. For the Philippines aren't bringing the heat,
Yeah, it's last time we really saw that was Bangkok Titans, and then again you have to look back again towards like season 5 for that to really.
I mean, I guess we had Gamma Bears in season 3.
Oh god, but when I say Bangkok Titans, the first thing that comes to mind is that G4 game against Faker at Worlds, where he predicted it would be a Master Yi mid lane, and tried to bait him into it by picking the Aurelia mid, and then got killed by Olaf at level 1 mid lane. Faker's 100% win rate on Olaf from that game, I remember that very vividly. But yeah, to go into some of the other wildcard regions, we can talk about, I believe it was Fenerbahce?
Yeah? No.
Was it Fenerbahce? No, it was Supermassive, of course.
Supermassive.
So I forget, I know the rosters, but I forget which teams which. So it's GBM in the mid lane, of course, yeah. Turkey it's a region that's suddenly having money put into it.
Yeah.
And they're picking up all these Korean players. We saw Kakao play in that region, for example. And
we saw Chaser, we saw GBM.
GBM was Snowflower as well.
I think Swift was there for
Swift was there for a little while. There's been a bunch of fairly high-profile players. Frozen, of course.
Of course, yeah.
There's been some really fairly high-profile players. Generally, more towards washed-up end, you have to say. People who have had a career and then that's tailed off. And
I guess we're going to talk about Kakao a bit later, but...
Yeah. Yeah, but Kakao is an exception for me. Kakao he's been hard done by in terms of where he's gone in the world. But like a player like Move, who I believe he was a sub for Incredible Miracles years ago or something, and then since then has just been on a world tour
Yeah,
where he's been to NA,
has been on Gravity.
Japan, I think. Yeah, I think he went to Japan for a split. He's played in the LMS. He played in Turkey. It's really these sort of players that they're looking to pick up, and it feels like they tried to develop with their own regional talent. You have people like Holy Phoenix, but it hasn't really worked out for them, and they still need to make that next step. And maybe it comes down to whether they've got the money now. They need to have the people who understand what to do with that money, the right staff to bring on, people who could train these players in terms of communication and building it up into a more region centered on its infrastructure.
And they remind me a lot of Season 4 NA, you know, when they first got their like outside talent and started to develop that. And kind of left behind their own development in their region. Didn't really have the veterans. You know, I want to talk about veterans a bit later, but I think Turkey does need some veterans that have played at these international events. We're gonna see like whatever is coming out of Turkey, the supermassive Turkish players, and whatever is coming down the summer split. Those people are gonna have experience on the international stage. Are gonna know what a good team looks like, and at that point they can start building good teams. Maybe become at least shot callers, if not coaches and managers. And
I was kind of worried about the actual infrastructure behind Supermassive, because if we could talk about how fun that one of the last games they played was, where they ended up switching all the roles, playing some unorthodox champions. I think they played Lucian top lane, Aurelia mid lane, and they had a bit of a laugh with it. But they were so disrespectful in the sense that they'd been all going out into interviews and saying things like, this is easier than the Turkish region, this is easier than the league we had in Turkey. Or why are we even here? We should just be straight into the stage. We should be just straight into the tournament. And then they have this game where they completely troll the game, they end up losing it, and they go through to the next stage of the play-in stage where they get absolutely destroyed. They get torn apart by, of all teams, EVOS. Not even the Flash Wolves, who were the other option. The worst of the two teams that were actually in this play-in stage qualifier. The worst team overall in the tournament, as it turned out, from the results. And they got 3-0'd. They got absolutely destroyed by EVOS. So, if I'm their staff, on that final game, I'm going, yes, you may think this is easy, you may think this is better, you are better than this and you deserve better than this. Then prove it to me. Prove that you can close out a game with as few mistakes as possible, punishing every mistake they make, and show to me that you can go into the next stage and dominate there as well.
EVOS 3-1 Supermassive.
3-1 rather.
Yeah.
It's but they still got torn apart by EVOS. It was really convincing. Yijin performed brilliantly in that series.
So let's go through some of the smaller regions here. The OPL finally showed me that they at least have some backbone. They picked up some wins. Look a lot better than they had in the past couple of seasons. The LJL has still not found its footing, honestly.
Yeah, it's again. This is a new version of Rampage, who famously got rid of Tussle and Dara. We can talk about Dara a bit later on, but this is the first roster with this split, and we know that Japan as a region has been struggling since their formation anyway. It's still a fairly new server. They've got time to develop. I think it's the newest server out of all of them.
Yeah.
So they still need that time to be able to become a competitive region, and they're making steps. And then you can look at we can talk about infrastructure again. If we're hearing what we've heard from Dara, that's not really the direction they want to be going. That's the kind of tainted minds direction for infrastructure.
Yeah. Looking at South America, really disappointing. This tournament overall.
Well, we can say Kaboom performed fairly well in terms of, like, they brought in a rookie team that had just come out of Brazil, having gone directly from the lower league, winning the top league, going to MSI and then being one game off of Supermassive,
Mhm.
I think they can be pretty proud of their performance.
Sure. The other thing is the pedigree that the CBLOL had before, where they, were on footing with Turkey and, well, basically everybody else. They
Yeah,
were always touted as like the next region to be a major region. They have the talent. They do have some long running expertise. They do have the investment. They do have they should have everything they need to succeed. And in that context, uh, having Kaboom finish relatively far down is kind of a bummer.
I think having Kaboom win was the biggest bummer for Brazil as a region, because it shows that there is very little consistency from the top teams, and part of that has to come down to the revolving door rosters they have. You have people like INTZ just dropping their entire roster and picking up 5 new players,
Yeah.
or the teams like those. They just go, okay, yeah, we're going to drop 3 or 4 of our players this split and pick up new ones, and I mean, you can't afford to have these revolving door rosters. You look at teams like Team Liquid, and one of the reasons that they've managed to get so much further than they did as Immortals and as COG, and you look at those teams that like Pobelter, Doublelift, and Xmithy were all on the COG roster. Ole, Xmithy, and Doublelift were all on the Immortals. Sorry, was Xmithy? Yeah, Xmithy was transferred to the Immortals
Yep.
roster. So you got all these pieces that have worked together in the past. You put them together, and they've got this synergy already. So why wouldn't you expect this team to perform well? And you look in other regions where they just have these revolving doors. They have these veterans who just retire after retire, leave, go off to a new team, or take a split out. And there's not really much in terms of experience in the scene. You're constantly bringing in these new players who don't have that much competitive experience. You can't expect these results to just come to you.
Yeah. And yeah,
That reminds me. Sorry, it reminds me of season 1 of League, where basically a team would get together for 1 or 2 tournaments, and if they didn't win, they just split apart, and then there'd be a new roster formed. And they did this over and over again until a roster finally won something, and then they'd stick with that roster. And if that feels like what's going on in Brazil right now.
Yeah, you had kind of the same thing going. If you look at these wildcard regions, you often see what happened to the major regions a couple of seasons ago. You kind of had that problem a couple of seasons ago when Fnatic in season 5 tried to get rid of XBeke and SOS, and to be fair, they came back with Origin, but everything kind of reshuffled, and a lot of there was a lot of talk about old players have to retire. High when is he finally getting out of the door, and
it's been his time now. To be fair, but it's been like people have been saying it's been his time for seasons.
And by now, I'm actually in the camp of like, High shouldn't actually leave the scene for quite some time. He might not be able to be on a top team consistently, but he should still be an influence in the scene and bring up new talent in these Golden Guardians rosters, for example.
I can see the argument for having him be a part of these rosters, but I think you can have him as a coach and impart that sort of knowledge as well. You don't need to necessarily have him compete against people like Bjergsen and Pobelter every week and expect him to be on a roster that people are funding. Like, this is Golden Guardians, as you said, that you're referring to. Golden State Warriors is a multi-million-dollar organization that's pumping money into this. They want to see results as soon as possible, and they're not getting those with High. It's and of course, when you don't have the threat of relegation, people are going to be pumping more and more money to go, we want results as soon as possible, and we're willing to take risks to do that.
At the same time, I don't think High can have that influence just from the coaching bench. I think he's a player that leads with example and is bringing up people. I don't think he would work as a coach that well. I don't think he can. Let me put it to you like this. I don't think, and I think he has said that himself. I don't think he can formulate his principles. He just has an intuitive feel for the game.
It's something where you call based on what you feel at the time rather than pre-thought strategy. I understand where you're coming from, and it's in-game sense that
Yeah.
he has that you can't just impart onto somebody. I can see where that argument's coming from. So we were rounding out on the wildcard regions at MSI, and I want to talk a little bit about Rainbow Seven, previously Lion Gaming. And they brought in White Lotus back from a ban, as he'd been banned for a few months, and this is his first game back. He didn't play all split with them, and the results were pretty much as expected. He didn't really have that synergy. He made some mistakes. The team didn't really play around him as well as maybe they should have done, especially since his AD carry centric meta. So Rainbow Seven ended up being in that group with Gambit, which was much less competitive. It looked like Gambit were clear favorites in that group at all times, and there was never really any threat to them.
Yeah, and well, they could have been a universe in which Rainbow Seven go like 4-2. They went 3-3 in the end. So, I mean, it's not even that far off.
It's not too far off, but at the same time, they still looked disappointing in those games, even when they were winning. And this is a roster that's, besides Genfix in the support role, has been together for quite a while. You see Giral, Oddie, Seiya, White Lotus.
Yeah.
Those players have been on Lion Gaming for multiple splits, and they've been constantly champions of the LLN. We need to see them making that next step up, where you either see other teams compete from that region, or you see them take a step up and willing to take it to other wildcard teams. Because, like, we'd seen them just a year ago, like a year and a half ago, every single wildcard qualifier they've been to, they were dominating in the group stage, and when it came to the playoff stage, that's where they failed to adapt. They failed to adapt in the best of series and got defeated there. This time around, they didn't even get that far. This is definitely a regression from them, and we said it was the less competitive group, but when you look at it, there's Chaos Latin Gamers and Ascension Gaming, who I was very disappointed by in this tournament, in the same group, and they got one game more than either of them is. It's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, lost to KLG of all teams, so we have parity between Latin America South and North now.
Yeah.
So I guess that stings even more. Yeah, we'll have to see where they go from here. Honestly, I haven't seen South and North, the CLS and the LLN evolve much over the past couple of seasons, and I don't know what it is. It could be investment, of course, but at the same time, we have seen regions, compete on a high level, even though they didn't have that much investment. So I don't know what's holding these regions back. I'd like to talk to an expert about that, but now,
when I look at this, and I can see that the four of these regions have sent the same team to the qualifiers the last 3 splits. It's with pretty much the same rosters as well. It's a little bit worrying, and I'd like to see more developments from the scene and more teams challenge them, than potentially just them step up these international events.
By the way, sorry for that. The audience didn't hear it, but Sin heard it.
Shrug that off.
Yeah, good boy. You know how to deal with distractions. I don't. I'm not good at that. Anyway, moving on.
I casted the TCS and I had to deal with distractions. With literally notifications coming up on screen telling me to kill myself.
Sounds fun.
Oh yeah, it was.
Anyway, so we're moving on to the group stages. The thing that kind of was a bit more interesting. Evo's made it through, smashed Supermassive, really. Flash Wolves look really good already against Gambit, and kind of continued that performance. So I kind of want to start with them.
Yeah, we kind of looked. We said we were disappointed with Gambit a little bit because we want to see them be able to do more against these teams. But then again, the team they played against, they got unlucky on the 50-50. They lost the coin flip and they got put against Flash Wolves, who at the start of this tournament were on pretty much the form that Flash Wolves has been looking for seasons. So to come in and then get, I believe that was a 3-0 against Flash Wolves.
That was a massive 3-0, yes.
Yeah. It was We said they struggled in the early game, and they looked for those team fights that would capitalize off of the enemy's mistakes. But when Muujin was just dominating them in the early game,
Yeah.
they had no way back in. There were no team fights because they were already at a 6, 8, 10k disadvantage by the time they got to these team fights. There was no way back in for them. And Flash Wolves was just so excellent at shutting the door behind them, so they made very few mistakes in those games.
Yeah, it is kind of the style of League of Legends I like to see the most, like very opportunistic, going for a lot of turret dives or past the turrets at least, being really aggressive, putting down some vision and dominating the game throughout.
That was really Muujin's style. We saw him in the EU Challenger Series just in the previous split playing for Red Bulls. He got picked up from there because he was seen as a prodigy jungler from Korea. He'd got high ranks in solo queue, so they picked him up there. And he did exactly the same thing in the Challenger Series. Regardless of what he was playing, he was dominating early games, able to constantly make those plays, dives, get those advantages. So he was a perfect replacement for Caster, a jungler who was renowned for being able to make those plays. But the only difference is I feel like Muujin plays a lot less around vision than Caster did. Caster was very adept at getting vision control and trying to shut out the enemy jungler, whereas Muujin's more about pushing the advantages he's got already into the enemy lanes.
Yeah, and it ended up working really well for them in the Gambit game, but also in the group stages. Maple played absolutely incredible throughout the Muujin kind of did the early game up till 7 minutes or something, but from that on, then on Maple kind of took over. Was a really big aid in these dives and took over the game from there. Honestly, Flash Wolves I haven't seen them win a game where they didn't have a good early game, but they were very consistent at having a good early game.
It's definitely really good at game plans coming in where they knew exactly how they were going to play around the map. Muujin knew exactly where to be on the map at the right times, and that was able to get them wins. I believe they went 6-0. It was before they ended up
after 3 days.
Yeah, 6-0 before they ended up losing a single game, which I believe was to RNG. Was it Fnatic?
No, it was Fnatic, I think.
Fnatic and then RNG the same day.
Yeah, because basically, I don't know which trader was around, but basically I remember...
Fnatic was first, yeah.
Okay, so basically we saw Fnatic picking up, I think it was it Trundle? I just remember
Trundle was a pick we saw a lot.
I just remember the counter pick was Xin Zhao, and it didn't work at all for Muujin. He didn't even it didn't even look like he was trying to have the same impact he had in the first 3 days, and they didn't make plays in the early stages and kind of fizzled out from there.
Yes, Maple ended up was eventually playing very well in this tournament. I believe he had the highest KDA of any mid laner in the tournament. And I can pull this up right now.
The question is also, is it better than BDD?
I mean, is he better than BDD is a good question. Because BDD did not have the tournament that people expected him to have. He was off of that Galio, off of that Scion that he was so often put on. To the point where we saw them put him on Yasuo in one game. And he just didn't have that same impact that we used to seeing him have.
Yeah.
And because that was really the way that Peanut was able to take over games. It's, by BDD having that pressure in the mid lane, things like Talia, where he can push the wave and start to roam. But without that pressure that BDD is normally exerting, Peanut struggled to be his normal aggressive self going into the enemy jungle, having the backup on those plays. It ended up costing him quite a lot. We saw him go in and die fairly often, or push a little bit too far, have to burn a flash. And he really got punished for that, and we could see what ended up happening with that. They had to bring in Cuz to be able to play around the map differently.
Cuz the guy being Cuz is already used to dying a lot. But yeah, it's been really disappointing. I guess we'll leave the Flash Wolves behind for now.
Yeah.
And
we can come back to them when we get to the ADCs. I want to talk about Betty's performance.
Yeah. So what happened? I mean, you already said something, but honestly, Khan didn't have any impact. I didn't feel anybody on Kingsland had the impact they had.
Besides Prey. I think Prey was excellent in this tournament still. Prey is still one of the most elite AD carries in the world. And he is still probably, for me, the second best ADC in this tournament.
Sure. The thing is though, as we saw with multiple teams at this tournament, even if you have a good AD carry, you need a good support system around it. We saw Uzi kind of struggling in the first couple of days, in part because Ming wasn't showing up as well.
Yeah, Ming ended up being a big factor in Uzi's success. But when they did start playing around Uzi really got all the resources. He had the highest gold share of any player in the entire tournament, and he started really mechanically popping off in the last couple of days of groups.
Highest gold share, highest kill share, highest kill participation.
Well, the thing is, when you talk about kill share and kill participation in terms of ADCs, that's more indicative of the team being a team fighting style, where they are looking to make most of their plays, make most of the fights around these team fights, where he's going to be picking up 3-4 kills because he's the ADC, he's the one last hitting most often. So that's really what they wanted him to be doing. That's why they got him on Kog'Maw, on Kai'Sa, where he could just scale up to the late game and be these big hyper carries. Ezreal as well, of course, where he gets to the late game, he becomes a hyper carry, he's doing the highest damage in team fights. And so that's where you see high kill participation numbers. Yeah. It's not that he's going around the map making these plays. It's that when the plays are being made, he is always there. Because it's the later on stages of the game when the team is grouped of 5.
Mm-hmm. Although, to be fair, he has been making a lot of plays as well.
You got to give him credit, yeah. He's been making a lot of plays, but most of them being more defensive, where it's like, he shouldn't have lived that there. But he still lived.
I mean, have you seen
diving Kai'Sa backline, that sort of thing?
Nah, just him versus Flash Wolves on the last day, where he played Ezreal and just dove past 3 turrets and killing everybody.
Yeah, the joys of Ezreal when he's ahead. It's
especially with
ADCs,
especially with the new builds. You deal so much damage in the late game. It's absolutely
I found it funny. This is actually a build I've been doing for a few seasons. I thought it was a troll build, to be honest. I can't give myself credit for it because I thought it was a joke build, and I just went, it's the same build I did on Lucian. If I just thought, oh yeah, I fancy a bit of fun, I've got Man Immune into Seraph's Embrace, because you get the shield, you get AP scaling on your abilities, and you can look to just start carrying in the late game and being that much more safe when you are an aggressive AD carry in someone else's face. But it works so effectively when you've got that bonus AP damage scaling with all of your abilities, and having that extra safety with the shield, whilst also increasing the damage of your mana immune passive because of the extra 1,600 mana.
Yeah.
And when the AD carry is so safe because of the current meta, where AD carries are just free to scale for 20-30 minutes, he's always going to get to that item spike. That was always the worry that I had when I was playing the build. I'm never going to get to this item spike. The game's going to be over in 25 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'm not going to have the Seraph's Embrace finished, so there's no point really going for it. When the game is guaranteed to get to 30 minutes anyway, you're free to have all that bonus damage, and Ezreal was just so strong. I believe he has an 80% win rate in this tournament. And there's even people like Slay, he had a 66% win rate in this tournament on a team that went 2-8. Both of their wins were him on Ezreal.
Let me find that out. Win rate, there we go.
If you look at Slay's match history, his only 2 wins at this tournament, I believe, were on Ezreal.
Oh wait, I'm at the playing stage. That's wrong. There might be 1 or 2 champions that just have 100% win rate. I don't know.
I don't. Oh, there are. It's
Ezreal, and then we have Kalista, Alawi,
Kindred, Alawi. Yeah.
With 100%, which I mean, it's 83% win rate over how many is it? 18 games.
Yeah. He's lost 2 games all tournament.
That's 18 banned games and 12 games.
12 games played, 10 games won. He's lost 2 games all tournament, and those games, 1 of them was from Slay. So this is pretty impressive when you look at the overall stats for Ezreal, and this is indicative that the item combination of having the Seraphs and the Man Immune will probably be nerfed in future patches, because competitively that's just insane.
I hope it will, because basically Ezreal, we're going to talk about the ADC changes later, but I think he's coming out of that one really far ahead, because he basically doesn't have to concern himself with any of that.
Yeah, and of course with one of the other things being the new Essence Reaver.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
Uh,
let's finish off this
Yeah.
this tournament before though.
Just god damn, there's some really interesting changes there.
So basically, for Kingzone going forward, I'm should we see Cuz going through? I'm not sure about that. We have seen in this interview by I don't know who it was, but basically they it was one of the guys on Kingzone said
Most of the time, it's Gorilla that handles interviews because he speaks English.
yeah. Although Peanut says he wants to do more interviews as well. I think he said, but whatever.
Okay.
What I wanted to get at is they basically play Cuz because then BDD calls around the game and BDD has been looking a lot better in the games where Cuz was playing. So
Yeah.
the question is, do we put Peanut back in just because he's that good? And I mean, Graves is meta, so do we just put Peanut in, or do we put Cuz in and hope that well, it works the way it worked last year? Because they didn't have that much practice with Cuz either.
I don't think you can really afford to risk it too much. In a best of five, you can definitely start one game with either jungler and then switch to the other. And the old SKT, where one jungler plays the first game, the other plays the rest. So, for example, you throw Peanut in the first game. This is what I would say. You throw Peanut in game one of a series. If he shows you that he can perform well and he's winning, then you allow him to stay in and you get him to play the rest of the games until you start to see maybe some issues appear or things that are irreparable in the middle of a series, and then you can put Cuz in. But if those issues are apparent from game one, you can go, okay, yeah, we need Cuz back in. We can't afford to have him try and adapt throughout a series because we can't afford to drop 2 games to Flash Wolves before we bring in Cuz.
Let me check something. They did play Cuz against Flash Wolves in the last game they played against them on day 5. So we'll have to see how this is turning out.
Yeah, so I think during the off season they'll be working with him quite a lot, but right now you have to think of the short-term changes you can make and the short-term abilities to adapt. And with the coaches are in the back room listening to comms, so they can actually hear what the players are saying and listen into the communication, so they can understand how well Peanut or Cuz will be communicating with the team, and then choose to make a substitution based on that if they need to, because we understand that's been the main issue of why Peanut was subbed in the first place, because they want to talk about how he shot calls or how BDD shot calls and how they interact with each other. Because if you've looked in the past with interviews with Gorilla, it's claimed that Peanut makes a call. He says we go in and we go in, and they have to all have that ability to go in on him. When you have like BDD playing Galio or Sion, where you can so easily follow up on that, it's great. When you have him playing Yasuo, it's so much harder to do that. When you have him playing Talia, it can be brilliant to do that, but Talia's been nerfed significantly and doesn't have that same wave priority that she used to.
Although to be fair, Maple kind of showed him the way when he played Yasuo.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kingzone will be interesting to see how they can perform later on. I do think like it's kind of hard to say. Does Kingzone have the traditional like best of 5 buff that Korean teams have, because they have not been showing too good results at Worlds last year? Are they actually a good best of 5 team?
I mean, Kingzone's my phase clan. I want to see them win their first major. I just want to see them win a major finally. They last season.
I mean, they won LCK
Worlds
twice, so
yeah, but okay, yeah. If you want to call that a major, yeah, it's pretty much a major. But we're talking in terms of international events here, where both Worlds and now MSI they've choked, and they've looked significantly worse. And it's been Khan underperforming dramatically, as he did against QV, against Samsung at Worlds last year, as he has this year. He got 1v1 by Stark. That kind of said everything. He's been consistently threatened by other players, and he's only really looked good on split pushers like Camille, Alawi. I want to see him put back on that Jace.
Better to get 1v1 on one by Stark than Stake, but
oh, we've not got Rogue Warriors at this tournament. There's no Stake anymore. Yeah.
I actually don't know where is he right now.
He's the coach for Rogue Warriors in China.
Okay, cool. I just remember him as that guy on with the
The
afro
guy with the huge afro from Flash
on
Wolves.
Flash Rolls. Yeah, was nice. Was
Um,
nice times. Anyway,
to mention Flash Wolves, because we talked about that a bit already. We've got Hanabi in the top lane now. Another one of the changes, because we talked about Mujin coming in for Kasa. Hanabi's been decent. He's not been excellent, but he's been performing adequately. They're putting him on things like Gangplank, and I know you're always saying that Gangplank does nothing. Gangplank does nothing, but he's providing what he needs to for his team when he does.
you're misquoting me.
Gangplank doesn't do anything.
Thank
okay,
you.
there we go. There we go. But he's providing what needs to be done for the team, and what he's providing is assistance for plays constantly being made across the map. Because if you see Mujin going aggressive, there's constantly a Gangplank ult on top of him. There's the dive bot lane, there's instantly a Gangplank ult, and there's that instant impact that can sway the tide of a fight. Like, that's what Gangplank provides in the early to mid game. And then in the late game, we know his barrel combos can pretty much one-shot any character.
Yeah, Hanabi reminds me a lot of like Looper on Samsung White, where basically what turned out like a lot of people say, oh, Looper has such good TPs and such good everything, and then basically it turns out Mata just told him TP now. So I'm not sure how much that is down to Hanabi, but it seems to be working out for them. He's playing the utility kind of top lane style. Is there when he's needed. Isn't it looking that good in lane, to be fair? But well, seems to be overall working.
Yeah, we look at top laners overall at this tournament. There's been some interesting stuff here. Because like Khan been underperforming. Stark, who last year at MSI was there was a lot of conversations about him being really awful play. He honestly made so many mistakes. He looked like he didn't understand the game, and interviews came out afterwards. He'd been on the team for literally less than a month, and he was filling in for a player, and he was going into that top lane playing competitively for the first time, and he was going directly into an international event to play against some of the best top laners in the world. And now he's had that experience. He's gone away from Gigabyte Marines, where he got replaced before Worlds, made his own roster, beaten the Gigabyte Marines, now come into Worlds and performed as the best player on his team. I think you have to give him so much credit for how far he's come.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's really impressive, and honestly, I hope we see more of Stark, because he's doing what Levi did in terms of he's the biggest impact on his team. He's the guy making the plays, making the difference. And you saw how long he stalled out the game versus Fnatic. It was basically Fnatic versus Stark for about 20 minutes.
So let's talk about EVOS for a second. Honestly, I do not know that much about EVOS, because basically my brain always tuned out when I heard, oh, EVOS is playing after the first 2 days. But you know, they did have some wins at least.
Yeah, they were able to pick up some wins, and it was really just, for me, it was Stark constantly giving that horn and then them playing around team fights effectively with it and being a great engager. And even when he wasn't, he still had a good game in Camille as well. That wasn't really talked about enough. And they had people like Rono P playing things like Alistair, Bronwyn. We've been seeing a lot more of the rise of things like Soraka, Janna coming back again. But cancer meta champions. It kind of tells you that it's indicative that it's a bad meta if Janna and Soraka are played commonly.
Sometimes.
Either way,
I mean, we still have
if you look at the play-in stage, Yijin was dominating in terms of that series. Yijin was looking like he could be the next Levi in terms of like, oh, is it just Vietnamese players get a buff in the jungle? Is that all it is? But when it got to the play-in stage, he wasn't really able to replicate those performances. Out of play-in stage, rather, he wasn't really able to replicate those performances, and it became more on Slay on things like Ezreal, Ron OP, and Stark on big engages, and that's how they won games.
I mean, to be fair, like, what did I want to say? I just completely blanked.
Just to finish it off, then, Warzone was really pretty much like an enabler, playing things like Karma consistently to be able to enable those engages further, buff up his team, and keep people alive for longer.
So, they won against both of our Western regions, and honestly, like, Team Liquid has
the West versus Wildcards. Oh no.
Oh no. And well, Fnatic was weird. Team Liquid looked absolutely terrible in the first couple of
Yeah.
days, and the way I saw it, I was already thinking Team Liquid is just gonna be the stereotypical NA team, once again, not doing like anything, trying to play not by not making mistakes and not making any plays whatsoever to accommodate that play style. Um, and well, they sort of turned it around. Doublelift stepped up a bit towards the
Yeah.
later stages. Honestly, when they won the game against, I think it was, what was their first win?
RNG was one of the wins that was a big turnaround.
Yeah, basically, yeah, they got like a lot of early kills, and Doublelift snowballed ahead, got 5 items very quick, and looked like he was three-shotting an Ornn or something, but still he was like standing so far back. It was comical. Like the game took
Yeah.
like 43 minutes, and they didn't finish the game, but because Doublelift didn't wasn't confident enough hitting anybody.
I think Doublelift really struggled with that in terms of his confidence. He's not really performed well on international tournaments in the past. It's been famed for TSM, like holding on to his flash and getting killed off, making mistakes along those lines that really cost him. But when you look at this tournament, this is probably the best international tournament he's ever had. In terms of his performances, he had games on Kaiser where he pretty much hard carried the team. If you look at his record against Fnatic, I believe he went 9-1-5 after his entire rest of the map lost. But he ended up just destroying when it got to team fights because he had such an advantage from those early stages and being able to mechanically outplay on Kaiser. Kaiser pretty much did that all tournament. Every Kaiser performance was so incredible. But it's really interesting to see him step up so differently. And when they were willing to put carry performances around him, he showed up. But then again, they tried to put him on Jhin so often in these performances. You can't be a Jhin hard carry. Jhin is a follow-up champion. You need a champion that's going in hard, somebody else that can be a carry, somebody else that can be a strong initiator, and Jhin to help follow up on that as supplement to help pick people off with damage. And so when you build a protect the Doublelift comp as they did in one of the final games, and then put Jhin into it, it's not going to work. You need to see him more on those Kaisers, those Kog'Maws to see him succeed. And they picked up 4 wins because of those performances.
Yeah, on the Caitlyn's.
Yeah, Caitlyn as well, he had a great performance on.
Yeah.
But like another player that really went under the radar, under everybody's radar all tournament. Over 80% kill participation, one of the reasons his team did so well, even when he was being hard focused out, was Xmithy. Xmithy really showed up to be this tournament. I think I'd say that he was the second best jungler at this tournament in terms of his performances in games and how he was able to path so smartly and make sure he was always where he needed to be on the map, making these plays to get his team back into it. And even if it felt like his lanes were throwing and Ole was just dying 8 times in a game, he still tried to have that large impact and he was still making these plays and surviving if he needed to. And really helping out Doublelift and helping him become that carry.
Interestingly, Team Liquid actually played 1-1 against every team but Kingzone at the tournament.
Yeah.
So they turned
it really shows you that turnaround. Yeah.
Yeah, and also shows you what they lose to. It is basically just a better version of themselves.
Yeah, it's a team playing around an 80 carry with 4 other choking members.
So yeah, Team Liquid, I think they can be like as proud as a 5th place at an MSI can be for their performance.
Yeah,
especially because they turn around towards the later stages, so they didn't get worse, they got better.
Very similar to how I would feel about G2 at Worlds last year. They didn't make it out of groups, but they were the best team that didn't make it out of groups. And they were probably the best team ever to not make it out of groups to the World Championship.
I mean, to be fair, G2 didn't make it out of groups because they were in a group of death.
Yeah, they were in a group of death. Let's be real. They had 2 of the semi-finalists in their group.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been like they had the World Championship, the actual World Champion.
Yeah.
And RNG, who could have even made finals as well.
Yeah, they lost in the semi-finals to SKT, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were 1 game away.
3-1. 3-2? I don't know.
They lost 3-2 to SKT in the final game. It was a very close series because SKT got took to 5 games by both Misfits and RNG back to back. and then
And
they lost to Samsung in the final convincingly.
3-0.
That was a really weird turnaround, but that's the past is the past. Looking forward to
Um,
the future now, we got to think about like the teams that did make it, and as you alluded to, Team Liquid got knocked out. They got knocked out by Fnatic in that final tiebreaker.
and
And,
Fnatic, honestly,
mm,
like Fnatic felt to me like a different team entirely. I honestly have a speculation where like there's a reason why Reckless did so badly. Like there has to be a reason because the entire team kind of played as if Reckless had never carried a game before. Like they played around Reckless like they would play around like I don't know, it's not Crown, Ruler or something.
yeah, I can see where you're coming from now.
And well, the rest of the team stepped up quite a lot, and I really enjoyed that. But Reckless kind of was a non-factor throughout the entire tournament.
Yeah, Weepo obviously playing as a substitute top laner, so you can't really say this is Fnatic at their best. They haven't got the player who they played most of their split with. They still won Europe with a substitute top laner because the rest of their map was so irrelevant. It was just all around Reckless at the time, who they just put all the resources on, and he got was 2 pentakills in the final, or an unofficial one, and then immediately afterwards a pentakill. And it's such a strong performance in those finals and showing that he was the best AD carry in Europe by a significant margin. To an extent, because you have to say that the amount of resources he was given and how every side lane was just, that's Reckless's, you can't touch that. That one's also Reckless's. To the point where he's getting about 12.6 CS per minute in those games. And that was the most in the world at the time. And so when he's given that amount of resources, and he's handed that amount of help by his team, and he carries, it kind of takes away from his performance a bit, because you look at other players like I want to go into Uzi. He was able to make a lot of his advantages on his own. He didn't just have MLXG camping bot lane all game every game. He didn't just play 4v2 with everybody diving bot lane constantly. He played 2v3. He played 2v4, where he was pulling off the. I want to compare him to Forgiven at Worlds, where Forgiven just actively said to the rest of his team, "You go and do your thing and try and get advantages across the map. I will take as much pressure as I can, and I will still be ahead come the 20-minute mark." And that's what he was able to do. And Uzi did exactly that here. He was taking the pressure. He wasn't dying to ganks. He made mechanical outplay after mechanical outplay to stay alive, while still garnering more and more advantages.
Yeah. Honestly.
And so it seemed like Reckless in that game, going back to Reckless, was afraid of him. Reckless is not willing to step up to Uzi like he has done in the past. Not willing to step up to any of these AD carries. And instead, a lot of the pressure fell onto Caps to be the carry for Fnatic.
Yeah. Honestly, he needs to hang around more with Forbidden, I think.
Honestly, if you've seen Forbidden's tweets, he was ripping into Reckless.
I haven't seen it, no.
So after the first game, where he conceded a lot of the lane against the Kog'Maw's Kai'Sa, Forgiven came out and said, I'm so fed up of AD carries just conceding
you said
the lane.
Forgiven.
Forgiven.
I was talking about Febiven.
Oh, Febiven. Sorry, I heard Forgiven.
Yeah.
Because like Forgiven was ripping into him, saying like, yeah, you need to just build first item Death Stance. You can survive the lane. He gave a full description of how Reckless could have won that lane, in every sense, and then went, you need to be better. And it's famed from in the past. Reckless said the reason he wanted to become a better AD carry and become the best AD carry in Europe was to prove Forgiven wrong. So hearing Forgiven continue smack talking him like this, people go, he's just an asshole. This is motivating for Reckless.
Yeah, and to be fair, that is a hallmark of a real competitor, to really want to show people you're the best. And I hope that Reckless can step up to the plate. He was never the best laning AD carry, to be fair.
No, he was always the clean-up AD carry.
Yeah, but at the same time, he hasn't been even doing that, apart from maybe the last series against Team Liquid. Sorry, the last game against Team Liquid.
There's a reason Tristana was one of his best AD carries. A champion that's based around late game and resets.
Yeah.
So, seeing that as his primary champion kind of tells you his style. But at the same time, he was so good at that style. He was so good at team fights. He was playing on the edge, on the knife's edge, able to put down as much damage as possible and survive. In this tournament, he just ended up either being way over or way under where he needed to be. So he was way over aggressive and died instantly, or barely put down any damage in a fight. And you saw Uzi willing to go right into the enemy's face at the right times, and he knew exactly when to go in and out. And Uzi was what Reckless wanted to be.
But let's talk about the rest of the map, which has been stepping up quite a lot. Broxah overall, like its performance wasn't like perfect or even phenomenal, but he did what he had to do, and he played very well around Caps. They to some extent kind of reminded me of like Bengi and Faker trying to go for these jungle invades, jungle on jungle 2v2.
Yeah, I love the pick where they went for the Yasuo plus Trundle. It's such a great idea to be able to just walk into a side lane and go, okay, you're dead. Caps now wins the side lane. We take 3 towers and win the game.
Anyway.
So it was an excellent setup for Broxah to be able to impact and help Caps win those games.
Yeah.
But Caps, another player who showed up really strongly, and he was the carry for Fnatic this tournament. Unfortunately, he was a bit inconsistent. He had these games where he went 0-5 on Talia in the last day, I believe.
I think he was the one calling for the entire tournament, because
Caps.
It kind of looked like that, because basically you saw some of his
surprising.
You saw some of his like really aggressive aggressive plays backfiring. Like he was the driving force behind most of the aggressive plays, most of the turret dives, even later into the game.
So you're saying he was the guy saying we pull the trigger now?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's been Hillsong on his history in the Unicorns of Love was so adept at doing that.
And
it's interesting to see if Caps is doing that
to
now.
some extent. Maybe in the later stages they did. I mean, Hillsong had some good engages later on, but I think in some games Hillsong was basically non-existent, and Caps took over. And sometimes it just didn't work. Like, do you remember the tower dive that they did with Bripo on Sion and him on? I don't remember who it was, like on day 5, where they just went in and died, and there was no reason to tower dive whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think it was just a 1-for-1, but the same. It was just there was no need to dive there, and they ended up risking so much for nothing.
No, they died 2-for-1, I think. But,
oh god, it was a 2-for-1, even worse.
And,
yes, because he walked into the brush and got picked off.
Yeah.
Immediately afterwards.
And,
you're right.
You saw some of his plays where that went well. For example, when he jumped with a package under the turret with Corki, and I think day 1 it was, and it looked really good, but. In some games,
this is the hallmark of Caps.
Yeah. So
you got to look back to even his debut game. He's been shown to be this Danish prodigy, baby faker, all these sort of synonyms thrown around for him. And even in his first game he ever played competitively in the ULCS for Fnatic against G2. His first game, I believe he went like 3-3. He went so aggressive and died for things, but he also would position halfway up the lane, beyond halfway, right into the enemy's face, get ganked, pull off a kill, a mechanical outplay, maybe get 1-for-0 and get out, barely alive. But he'd just he'd be on that knife's edge, barely between insane and genius. And that's where he is constantly going, the back and forth between way over aggressive and just enough to be able to know that he can make the outplay.
Concluding Fnatic, I would say they're a team with like super high potential by now. Like a lot of their players have shown a lot of upside. Bwipo as well has one game on Camille where he was like a constant split pushing threat, going into the 2v1, was looking really good. You had Hillsong doing some really good engages this tournament, but the Fnatic also has a very low downside, especially now that they can't rely on Reckless that much anymore.
Yeah, it's they really need Reckless to step up. They really need him to be present and accounted for in terms of his damage share, in terms of how much he's willing to do in team fights. Because especially the one game he played on Tristana, which I believe was against RNG, he just got absolutely clapped anytime he got anywhere near. And Tristana's a higher range late game ADC. He wasn't able to provide anything. He was just getting completely outdone by a 5-2-5 range Kai'Sa.
So, concluding this, let's start with the semi-final predictions. So, RNG versus Fnatic. In my opinion, unless Fnatic is proving all of that, all of that potential in the semifinals. RNG should have that hands down. Uzi has been looking really good not, maybe not the entire for the entire tournament, but from day 3 or 2 onwards, he's been looking really strong and has been almost looking like the best player in the world. I think his team has been playing relatively well around him in the later days. Ming has really surprised me. MLXG has finally found his footing, and
No longer is he MLXD. Yeah.
yeah, and honestly, to me there's no there's a maybe 5% chance that Fnatic is winning this series, and let's say let's say a 30% chance they take a game.
I wouldn't say it's that low that they take a game. I'm actually going to predict it's going to be 3-1 Fnatic. I think their Caps is volatile enough that they can take a game off of RNG here. So, looking into it, as you say, Uzi has been so strong in the bot lane, and he's been outdoing Reckless in every regard. But you've got players like Broxer, who's playing so effectively. They're actually able to shut MLXG out of the game so effectively in the early stages against RNG, but it ended up being... you were seeing MLXG fall behind in the early game, and then it'd be Uzi carrying later games. And especially in that one game he played Lee Sin, so... I need to see more coming out of the bottom lane, but beyond that, I believe that Caps can be strong enough over Xiao, who has had a really underwhelming performance in terms of how he performed last year at MSI from picks like Lucian. So I need to see Caps carry games and be the performer that he has been, whilst also backed up with not necessarily the hyper carry threat who's just going to destroy late game teamfights, but somebody who can supplement him at least and stand up to his level on Reckless. And then maybe we can see them take multiple games. But I'm predicting it's going to be 3-1 RNG. Uzi will not be outdone.
Fair enough. We'll see how it goes. I do think RNG has a very high potential to 3-0 this. Moving over
they could, but after seeing how volatile Caps has been, I can't ignore the possibility of one game, and I think that the possibility is high enough that Caps will just pop off and destroy a game on something that can make plays around the map.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like when he was playing Aurelion Sol, that was a very strong pick for him.
So, lastly, the other semi-final. It really depends on if Kingzone is finally going to prove their potential on that side, because Flashwolves has been looking really good all tournament, and if they're going to keep playing like they have been playing, Kingzone has to bring their A game, or even their S game.
Yeah, they definitely have to show up against the Flashwolves here, and we talked about Muujin being so effective in the early jungle. Without Peanut's early game potential, I feel like they're going to struggle more running Cuz in that semi-final. But at the same time, you need to unlock BDD. You need to make sure he is able to make plays, and make sure that they don't fall behind, because so often we saw them with a goal deficit at 10-15 minutes, and it being down to Prey to carry them in those later stages. So we need to see something where they have a strong enough early game, they're not conceding objectives, they're not conceding pressure, so that the rest of the map is supplementing Prey, similarly to what we were saying about Caps.
Honestly,
I can see them running Peanut, and if Peanut is able to have that early game where he can perform like he has done in the past, where he's just chain ganking as Sejuani and killing everybody.
They honestly need to run Peanut, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there, but I feel like BDD needs to be unlocked as well, and Peanut isn't allowing that to be the case.
The thing is, even in the past when they have played Cuz and have been doing well, like even in the LCK finals last year, when they were playing Cuz, they had a shit early game. Like Cuz was dying over and over again. He was throwing a lot of pressure, and Khan was stepping up because of that, because he could just free farm and take over a game. But
that's why Ambition shut them so far down in Worlds, and it was just Cuz falling behind early and not having any impact on the game, which in turn took Khan out of the game.
Against these Flash rolls, I don't think Cuz can win a single game.
It depends which Flash Wolves shows up. If it's LCK Finals Flash Wolves, if it's LCK Finals Kingzone rather, we're going to see Kingzone destroy Flash Wolves. And it'll be through the top lane and playing around. But the meta's changed so much. We need to see the ability to play around bot lane and get Prey ahead early, and have everybody buy in on that, and have Khan able to survive on his own we've seen him on his own fall behind often, or nearly get solo killed, and consistently take bad trades. So I need to see which Khan shows up, and I think the crux of it is the jungle impact. And so that's where I can understand Peanut being necessary to a successful early game. But I think Cuz understands in terms of vision pressure and where to be on the map better, and Peanut understands how to push an advantage better. But he's not getting those advantages right now.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess we'll transition to our next topic then.
I want to quickly give a prediction for that, and I'm going to predict it's actually going to be 3-2 Flash Wolves. I wanted to say 3-1, but I believe the best of 5 buff for Korean teams is going to be there. And we're going to see a lot more adaptation in terms of draft, because we've seen some stupid things where, like, they drafted 3 losing lanes, and then Peanut got hard invaded constantly when he was playing Zac. And it's like, what did you expect? But this time around, I think they'll be able to adapt in this series enough to be able to at least pick up 1, hopefully 2 games, and make it really an interesting series.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the more competitive series.
Yeah.
I don't want to. The thing is, I don't want to put a prediction down without knowing who's going to play.
That's fair.
Because I do think, like, if they put Peanut in, they have a very good chance of going 3-1 versus the Flash Wolves, and have a, let's say, 25% chance of actually, like, if Flash Wolves show up the way they can show up, they have a Kingdom has a 25% of winning the series regardless. But if they play Cuz, I don't see them having any chance of winning the series.
Just remember, Louis, bad prediction equals bad analysis.
Yep.
If you didn't predict it correctly, your analysis is awful.
Yep. Anyway, moving on. We wanted to talk about the post MSI meta. Now that we do have certain reveals coming through, we do have the jungle changes completely coming through onto the live server,
God.
and the 80.
I honestly felt like crying all of yesterday.
I actually had to cast a series on the new patch.
I honestly felt so sad. I played yesterday, and I played with a 4-man pre-made. So we were playing some flex, and so I go into it and I say, okay, I am going to suicide as I will dominate. I was quoting I will dominate. I will suicide for every single Scuttle Crab until you realize you have to 5-man this Scuttle Crab with me, because it's so important. And I played 1 game of Graves, and then we had a fun game where I played Iva in jungle and Magical played Nunu top with Smite. So
Nice.
The Graves game, I took every single Scuttle Crab bar the first one on the other side of the map.
Yeah, Graves.
We traded one Scuttle Crab for 1 Scuttle Crab. Then I got every single other Scuttle Crab for the rest of the
Graves
game.
is pretty ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah.
Basically, they changed it back so that Graves shreds the armor again with his normal shots.
Yeah, so it's
bonkers.
pretty insane in terms of what he can provide in the early stages, especially when you get skirmishing Smite. But the Scuttle Crab now giving you that massive amount of extra bonus sustain, a huge amount of experience. It's like the equivalent of pretty much a whole wave of experience in the early stages.
Yeah.
You have to contest every single one of them. You have to have priority lanes to help you contest them. And if the enemy jungler doesn't contest them, or you just happen to be able to win out over them on the coin flip consistently, then you get a 3-level advantage by the time you're level 10. Guaranteed. Because the camp experience scales with your level. So if you get a 1-level advantage, you get more experience per camp than them. And it allows you to get a larger advantage. And I think that is a great addition to the jungle in terms of, if I'm a higher level, I get more experience than him, so I can snowball my experience advantage into multiple levels. What it isn't okay with is a coin flip to go, okay, will it land top or bot lane? My top lane's winning, my bot lane isn't winning. It's bot lane, I guess I lose Scuttle Crab. It's just, it doesn't feel fair, it doesn't feel like it's an interactive feature. And that's where they need to change it, but it's so useful to have the ability to show that you are the stronger jungler of the two.
Maybe I mean, this might sound crazy, but maybe have it be like spawn where the closest last champion died.
I honestly think they should just have two up at all times, and then all times as in two spawning each time, and them both just give less experience. So they because they previously gave 10
We're
experience
just
last
back
patch,
to where we were.
but they previously gave 10 experience last patch and minimal health and mana.
I
They give 20% mana, 20% health, and like 200 experience now. If you nerf that down to say 100 experience and there's two of them, that's still an ability to, if you can path correctly and path that in, contest it, you can outdo the opposing jungler consistently.
The problem is if the skull crabs spawn at the same time, basically.
Not necessarily at the same time. They just spawn.
I mean,
when you kill
but
one,
they
it will
pretty
spawn in
much
3
do
minutes.
because most teams are gonna take the first scuttle crab at the same time. So basically,
Yes, but the idea is if you want to trade scuttle crabs, you can try and dissuade them from taking one on the other side while taking one on the other side. So you can have a mid laner who roams and then takes one scuttle while you take the other. So
Yeah,
it can be that ability to shut them down or
but the problem
deny
is,
them that scuttle crab for a little bit longer and make it so the spawns are desynced to the point where your jungler can contest both of those spawns.
yeah.
And it provides more strategic play.
The only problem is with that is basically your jungler has to take the scuttle crab on the south side, and if your mid liner wants to contest the scuttle crab on the top side, he's
You have to have a
basically up
top lane
against
priority.
he's basically coming up against the mid laner and the jungler on the scuttle crab, and maybe even the top laner.
Because it's the idea that you need to have priority lanes to help contest scuttle crab right now, and that's one of the issues that people are having. But there needs to be something that isn't just a coin flip. There needs to be more than a coin flip. We don't want this to be season 1 of Overwatch.
Yep.
Where it's all decided whether you win or lose the game on that coin flip. So it's definitely a really horrible change. I haven't actually experienced the negative side of it yet, but I've witnessed the negative side of it for other junglers, and it's kind of like if you don't get your first scuttle crab within 15 minutes, you're legally allowed to leave the game. Because people are just struggling so much once they start losing one or two that you see junglers on less gold, less experience than the supports, and that's just not okay. We don't want to go back to season 1, season 2 jungle.
Honestly, what could be a good idea is to actually put the scuttle crabs into the jungle itself, so that we have it basically more of like a buff contest. You know?
Okay, so you've actually got a scuttle crab roaming. Because the thing is, the scuttle crab was initially introduced so that there was a reason to push your lane and then go into the river as a laner, and that became something that only the jungle contested. And it was meant to be a vision for the river, and it's still used as a vision for protection for Dragon and Baron. So if you're saying the idea is you can kill the scuttle crab in your jungle while it's roaming around your jungle, and then that runs to Dragon or Baron, then that's an interesting concept that I can get behind. And one spawns in either jungle, you can contest the opposing one.
The problem is there's really no space for it. That's kind of the biggest problem. I guess
in the end,
I
it
guess
can
the
just roam around similar to the way the wolf spirit did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best place you could put it is like, I don't want it to go too deep into the jungle because basically that makes it too safe. So the only place I guess you could put it is like behind the pits. But
yeah, well, honestly, I'd like to see you could get it to path so it does a loop where it goes through the river, up past blue, around the back of blue, like that.
Oh, that could be.
So there's a small time where it's contestable there. Unfortunately,
or
that creates like a cycle.
Behind the pit could also.
It creates a cycle. It creates a cycle system where somebody's like, "Oh, there's a small duration where I can contest it. I have to know the timing of that," and that's what we know Riot really doesn't want to do in terms of people actually have to think. Because remember when buff timers, 10 people on the map all see the buff timer at the same time. Previously, you used to have to put it in the chat or guess when they took the buff, and then coordinate invades around the timing of the buff that you've had to either guess or put a ward down to find out. And it created strategic play that people had to plan out and think about. Nowadays, it's just, the buff's spawning. I didn't know that, but now I do because the map told me.
I mean, on the same side, though, I think Riot has learned a decent bit over the over the past couple of years. They have learned that not all of their ideas are let's say, bulletproof. They have done some like D works, which no one like. Those self-respecting
Yeah.
company even would do that, and
I mean, people are really enjoying new
not
LeBlanc.
self-respecting. That was probably a bad word, but like most companies are over self-respecting themselves so much that they would never walk back on a decision that big. And I think Riot has been doing really well. Realizing the mistakes they've done in the past.
It's definitely good to see them go back to old LeBlanc because it was one that everybody clearly enjoyed more. And it's, although I'm personally gonna miss old LeBlanc, the old new LeBlanc.
Yeah.
The new old LeBlanc is one that's just so much more fun to watch and it has so much more outplay potential that I'm excited to see it back, and I'm waiting to see some of the competitive mid laners pick it back up and I'll see it competitively again.
Mm.
But like in terms of what you're saying, I can see what you're saying about the D-Works being a great system that they might go back on these ideas. They're willing to change and they're willing to say this was a mistake.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how they're going to change it because like the whole aim of this change was just so junglers can't gank level 3 while the opposing lane is level 2. They want them to have to work harder for a level 3 gank.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can understand that perfectly. But the Scuttle Crab change has just made it so, okay, it's all about lane priority to get the Scuttle Crab, and it's not even about the jungler getting the Scuttle Crab anymore, it's just about laners being able to deny it from the opposing jungler. It's smite in every position, it's just, Unfortunately, every other example of smite in other positions has led to a jungle nerf, where it's been like, okay, smite's being run top lane, let's nerf Cinderhulk.
Yeah.
So I hope this isn't a case where that's going to be, and they just nerf that Scuttle Crab in terms of how juicy it is for the laners, and make it so there's less of a need to contest it in terms of the laners contesting it. So it's more about the junglers contesting it. And right now, honestly, it feels more detrimental to your clear and to your jungle experience to give over the Scuttle Crab than it does to give over a buff. I'd rather give my mid lane a blue buff than I would Scuttle Crab. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a bit about what champions are gonna be propelled into the meta by this new change. So Graves previously was more of a counter pick, honestly, to the Trundle, I think, right?
Graves had been coming in just because he had so many buffs. They managed to put the armor back on his passives and slowly buffing his clear bit by bit to the point where he's become relevant again. It's not necessarily that it was a counter pick, it's just that he is such an effective clearing jungler, and that's really what Trundle came in to be, because he was trying to go, I can keep up with clear with Olaf. That's why Trundle turned up in the first place.
Yeah.
So now Graves is, I can keep up with Trundle.
And I can burst him down, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Without having to be a tank, so Trundle doesn't get those bonus resistances. Yeah.
But with the buff, you know, he can take Scuttle Crab really nice. He can clear really well. So he should be coming. He should be coming in like as the best jungler by far, honestly.
I think on the current patch, yes, he's the best jungler. And the other junglers we're seeing, unfortunately, like Ivern, Nunu, people who can secure that Scuttle Crab as early as possible.
And very easily, yeah.
And very easily, yeah. Nunu obviously coming in with Q Smite. Ivern coming in where he's just able to mark it with his passive and then smite it instantly.
Yeah.
And this is another example of how bad it has been for junglers. You pretty much can't smite your first objective. You can't smite your blue buff, you can't smite your red buff for health. You need to save your smite for Scuttle Crab, your first smite of the game.
Yeah, because otherwise...
And although a lot of people save their smite anyway, it still feels so strange that there's zero situation in which you should smite your first camp.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I guess Kha'Zix might make a resurgence as he has the isolation kind of deal going on.
I can understand Kha'Zix potentially coming back and being a strong pick, because you've got people like Ivern coming in where he can just jump on top of him and try and get rid of him. Yeah. Graves, so you can contest him, especially with the changes they've made to his ultimate, where you're going to get that like 3 seconds of invisibility, so you can get out of a fight instantly. So
if the the new change also forces people out of their jungle into the river, so Kha'Zix will have some really nice play there. Honestly, I I think tanks are gonna be the ones that miss out. Like weak clear tanks like Sejuani, and
Mm. That was always Sejuani missed out to anyway. Junglers who have a quick clear. You saw like the biggest counterpick to Sejuani, and it has been since Sejuani became meta again, was Nidalee. Because Nidalee is just able to outclear her, outtrade her, and then just make it so Sejuani has zero impact on the game because she doesn't hit level 6 until like 10 minutes in at least.
mm,
And then by that point, it's already too late to really have that much of an impact.
yeah. So I guess we have a relatively volatile jungle meta from now on.
Mm.
I guess Lee Sin might make a resurgence.
It's something I
It's,
always
it's
think
always
about when
hard,
it comes
yeah.
to Lee Sin. Lee Sin's always hard to predict where he's going to be because if you buff early game junglers, yes, he's going to be relevant. If you make it so that it's going to be Graves fighting a Lee Sin at level 3, that's
Yeah.
still an advantage for Graves.
Yeah, for sure.
In almost every situation, you need to see Lee Sin. He needs to be able to bully squishy, like non-bursty junglers or people he can get the jump on very easily. When you got somebody like Graves, who obviously is ranged, has such an oppressive early game, it's hard for him to really contest that.
Yeah, like honestly, I just feel like Lee Sin is a very good 2v2 champion, so he's gonna work with mid laners very well and be able to secure maybe one or two of those crabs.
After they've buffed his shield like 6 times in the past year, seriously, go back and look at the amount of changes they've made to his safeguard. It's
Yeah.
buff after buff after buff.
Yeah,
And so I saw it used for the first time in a long time when MLXG played the other day.
yeah.
And he popped that shield, and I was just suddenly like, hang on a minute, that's like a 300 damage shield. Hello?
That just happened.
Yeah, it was previously like 100, 150, but then it was. Yeah, it's actually a much larger shield now, and he's able to 2v2 much more effectively because of it, because he's giving that buff to himself as well of lifesteal and lifesteal to be able to clear that much more effectively when he's shielding himself in the earlier stages.
So with all the extra, experience coming to the jungle, all of the extra gold coming to clearing junglers, like,
Yeah.
are we gonna see stuff like, I don't know, Master Yi, Shyvana, stuff like that coming through?
I can see Shyvana coming through, and I can definitely see her being strong. Master Yi is one that, honestly, Master Yi was already kind of strong last patch, low key. You look at his win rates in terms of high-low play, it was something upwards of 60%. And
Yeah, it's
by
just-
high-low play, I do mean Diamond Plus, I don't mean...
yeah, challenger.
I mean, like, looking Master Challenger and High Diamond rather than looking from Gold upwards,
Yeah.
as a lot of statistics do. It was really interesting to see that now it's focusing more on this. You gotta think, is he strong enough at level 2 and 3? This is honestly, like, jungle diversity means nothing to Riot right now because can you contest Scuttle Crab at level 2? If the answer is no, you're not a jungler. Simple as that.
I'm sitting in the corner crying. I mean, he was
My
he was
favorite and
always
best
good.
champion, Evelyn, is completely unplayable right now because where they go, you need to have more interactions with the opposing jungler when they've nerfed her ability to have interactions with the opposing jungler massively to the point where she can't whatsoever try and trade with another jungler in the early stages unless it's literally like, I'm going to trade against Sejuani and Sejuani misses everything, therefore I get a positive trade with my electrocute.
Yeah, it's rough. So, yeah, with that coming through, how much impact is? I mean, jungle will always have impact on the lanes, but like, is that diminished?
This is what they've wanted to do in the end. And this is trying to make sure that there's no level 3 ganks just everywhere. And yes, it has been diminished. Jungle's impact on lanes has been gutted. But the thing that's been changed now, which is exactly the opposite of what I think Riot wanted, is lane impact on jungle. It's all about the lane's impact on the jungle now. You have 4 people on the map that have to now play around the jungle.
So
Rather
removing
than the jungler playing around 4 other people.
So I guess we're moving away from fights like the 5-man bot lane to the 5-man river.
5-man river, 5-man scuttle. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say 5-man, but that's obviously an exaggeration. We're going to be looking at like bot lane is looking to hard push and roam up towards scuttle.
I get what you mean. Five-man jungle, five-man bot lane was also kind of not happening all the time, but like
it was always 4-man bot lane. That was the actual thing.
Yeah.
You did see like 4 people run bot lane,
and then we have a teleport.
Teleporting behind the tower, trying to tower dive, and you see the mid laner like Talia roam down or something to be able to try and get the kill.
So yeah, it's gonna be kind of interesting to see the fights move. Honestly,
I want it gone. I want it gone. It's such a terrible change.
Sure.
They need to make it so there's less of a lane impact on the jungle. I'm fine with there being some, but it needs to be more of a focus on a jungle impact on the lanes. The jungler isn't the hyper carry. You don't need 5 people trying to assist the jungler, but unfortunately, you need to at the minute. It's the only way you win the game, because if you just let the other team get the scuttle crab every time, they end up with a level advantage on every single one of their members, and that's while the gold is still pretty much even from CS and the lanes. They just got like 200 or 300 extra gold from scuttles, and also a 2-level lead from that.
All right. Well, despite this, maybe not being the best change, we'll have to see how the meta evolves, and maybe we can see some, let's say, high level play developing around it. So I'm really interested to see how this is going, to see what kind of interactions are evolving. What is really interesting to me is like having the interaction with terrain around the skull crab, because you have like the ledge, for example, from the bot lane brush. You have like multiple entrances to that area, so you have a lot of brushes as well. So having this new terrain to maneuver around with these skirmishes will be really interesting, because we actually have to contest scuttle crab. Like, of course, we already had river fights before, but maybe we'll see something evolve out of this one.
So, of course, the other role that was changed quite a lot, but obviously the jungle changes because they're so fresh, we wanted to talk about here. But the more interesting change for me is actually the ADC changes that came through, or I believe are still to come through. The item changes. Next patch. Well, I've had a chance to play them a lot on the PvE already. I have a PvE account, so I've been utilizing that.
I had a PvE account, but it got deleted because I didn't use it for like 2 seasons.
So, one of the things I've been trying out is the new rune Hail of Blades. It's the rune that uncaps your attack speed and gives you 3 attacks with between 30 and 100% attack speed boost for a short duration, yeah? I've been running that on Kai'Sa and Kog'Maw, along with Stormrazor and Essence Reaver. So, Stormrazor gives you attack speed, your first auto attack is a crit. Whenever you crit, you get bonus movement speed, and it gives 70 AD. And the Essence Reaver, you get 20% CDR, 1% of your mana back on hit. Again, it's like 70 AD and 20% CDR. And the other passive is, whenever you pop your ultimate, you get a passive that gives you 30% bonus attack speed. And with every auto attack, you reduce the cooldown of all your basic abilities besides your ultimate by 20%. So if you use your ultimate and land 5 auto attacks in 3 seconds, entirely possible if you've got 2 attack speed, even like 1.5 attack speed, then you've just got a full reset on your W as Kog'Maw, for example. So his W isn't like you pop it and then it's active until it runs out. You pop it and it's on cooldown, so you can instantly get a reset of your W as Kog'Maw in a fight, which is going to be so useful. And with the Hail of Blades, it removes all the ramp-up time from your Gwynsu's Rage Blade, because that's obviously still the first item. And you get 3 auto attacks with a massive boost of attack speed, to the point where by the time your Gwynsu's is capped out, you're already at your maximum attack speed anyway. So you get the 100% attack speed boost, attack 3 times, and by and then your 4th attack, you're at the same attack speed you started off with, and then you get a little bit more attack speed. Your Gwynsu's is already ready.
Yeah.
And if you're hitting minions already, you get the 6 stacks on the Gwynsu's. Then you pop Hail of Blades. Your attack speed's uncapped. You end up with like 3.5 attack speed, bopping someone in the face.
Yeah.
It's nutty, and I've been loving trying that out.
Yeah, it's honestly it feels really explosive. It kind of moves the like there are certain champions that are gonna have more early game impact now, but for a lot of champions it moves the like biggest power spike much later. I think.
Like all the crit based champions.
Yeah, the crit based champions, even to some extent the on it based champions. I mean they still have that Gwynsu's power spike, but if they're going for the Essence Reaver later, you know, they're gonna have an even more gigantic power spike, and they don't really have to go for a crit variant anymore, I guess. Like you're not gonna see a Kotmar going for like Gwynsu's into rapid fire into how is it
that
called?
seems a lot less likely
Infinity
now.
Edge, yeah.
We're going to see a lot more people building a lot more AD, and I think that's what they want from this. But so if we're looking at the first item rush, it was always Infinity Edge. Yeah, would you agree?
Yeah.
Infinity Edge was pretty much, if you look at AD carries as a whole, the most commonly rushed item was Infinity Edge. Now Infinity Edge is a late game penetration item akin to that of the Last Whisper.
Funnily enough, the Last Whisper is not a late game penetration item anymore, though.
Yeah, it's been turned into more of an early game penetration item, similar to how it was before, where you used to see like a Riven run it really early in the top lane.
It kind of feels like, you know, second item having the Last Whisper just ready is looking really good. Like
even just a component, yeah.
Yeah.
But to say where it's going to go in terms of rush now, I'm looking at the Stormrazor. It's an item that gives attack speed, gives AD, scales with crit. And it gives you that automatic crit, and it also scales with attack speed as well. So the way it works is every, I believe it's 2 seconds out of combat, 2 seconds without auto attacking, not even out of combat, your next auto attack is guaranteed to crit. It will crit for 160% of your normal critical strike damage. So like 160%, sorry. It will crit for 160% rather than 200%.
Yeah.
Then you can wait 2 seconds and get another crit automatically again, constantly giving you 10% movement speed.
Yeah.
But if you build attack speed, that's lowered down. So if you have 2 attack speed, for example, that's a 1 second gap between auto attacks that you need to have for it to be guaranteed a crit. And if you build more crit, it scales up again to be the full 200% in terms of that damage. So it's really good in terms of all the scalings that a crit-based ADC wants. Then you can go to the Zeal items, you can pick up the Energizer build if you want, and then you just build a lot more AD than you used to.
It's kind of weird. I see some champions going that route. I see Tristana going that route. I see maybe Caitlyn going that route. I see
Sivir, I'd say as well.
Sivir go that although actually Sivir, I'm not sure, because I think a lot of champions are going to look at Essence Reaver as well. Sivir is getting a lot. Sivir is getting a lot of attack speed, and basically, the Essence Reaver helps us so much getting like basically full uptime on a W. So there's gonna be champions who want to build the Essence Reaver. There's gonna be Lucian who wants to build the Essence Reaver. There's gonna be, I mean, maybe Ezreal, although I think he might still go for his normal build, and honestly I want to talk about Ezreal a bit later.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a bunch of AD carries who want to go for the Essence Reaver.
There's gonna be a lot of testing out, and I'm gonna be interested. One of the ones I'm most interested to see actually is Jhin. Jhin being obviously the most unorthodox ADC with his scalings.
Yeah.
Stormrazor isn't gonna do all that much for him, but the idea that every 2 seconds, if you auto attack every 2 seconds, you get a guaranteed crit.
And you're auto attacking so little anyway.
Yeah, but the thing is, the guaranteed crit, whenever you crit as Jhin, you get the bonus movement speed.
Yeah.
So this is giving him a bunch, and you get the 30% attack speed from the item, which increases the movement speed. And you get the movement speed
from what's the new keystone as well.
Yeah, of course. It's
and you get the extra AD and like you basically do auto attack, then do an ability, wait out the 2 seconds, do another crit, do another crit, do another. I've seen clips of that.
The thing is, that's honestly like that seems to be how long your between your auto attacks is in
Yeah,
those earlier game skirmishes anyway.
like
If you're looking more towards the late game, he's already going to have the crit anyway, so it doesn't matter.
it
But in those early game skirmishes, it's going to provide him a lot.
like I've seen naughty clips of Jin with some of the new items, and he's looking to be like, honestly, this might turn him into a hyper carry, which is looking pretty damn scary.
I mean, the Gwinsus was already a bit of an issue on him, wasn't it?
Mhm.
So
Is that allowed, by the way, by now in competitive? In competitive.
I'm not sure it still is because I can check the current patch notes. I believe I've got the client up, unless they've bug fixed the issue, because the bug was that your scaling was the issue. So what it's meant to be is Gwinsu's every time you auto attack up to the 6, you get 5% bonus AD,
Yeah.
5% bonus attack speed, 5% bonus AP.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting 5% bonus AD. He was getting more than that.
Yeah.
So that was clearly an issue where.
So basically,
was
the
being
way
treated
the way I
unfairly.
think it is basically, Jin probably has a base AD value, and then has the then it gets put through the grinder of his like passive, and then spits out his new AD.
Yeah.
And he probably got extra AD based on the new AD, not on the base AD.
I can understand that, and it seems to be what's happened because he's still not been fixed. There's still not a bug fix to that issue. Meaning, in competitive, you still can't build Gwinsu's Rageblade on Jin.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard about this, if you build Gwinsu's Rageblade on Jin, the game will be paused. You'll be called out on it. You'll be forced to go back to the base,
And
sell the item, regardless of the gold loss, and the game will continue.
Yeah.
They won't chrono break it. They'll just make you go back to the fountain
And
sell that item.
to be fair, I think that's fine, because on the one hand
It's fine because people should know if they've
Yeah,
been told not
like-
to build it, not to build it.
Yeah, it's the rules, and everybody is probably made very aware of that rule.
Yeah, especially since Jin wasn't actually played on the patch where they had to bring it up. It was just Prey pulled it out for the first time anybody had seen it in ages. And it's like, by the way, he can't build Gwinsu's. We've just been told that.
But yeah. So Jin is looking scary. Now I want to talk quickly about Ezreal, because basically Ezreal's build doesn't change that much. I think he's still gonna go for a Sheen item into the double tier.
Yeah.
Then we might see like Man Immune finished, then and then he builds like Essence Reaver. That could be a thing, but he pretty much stays at the same item build. So he's
So
gonna
previously,
be
what people have been doing is going Lucidity boots, and that will give them 30% CDR, and the last 10% doesn't end up really coming, I believe. So, it ends up coming from something like Blue Buff, because they get the Infinity Edge, Triforce, which gives you the 20% CDR, Man Immune. But the thing is, because they get the Seraph's Embrace now, that gives them the full 40% CDR.
Yeah.
They've got, and if they get any extra from Essence Reaver, they pretty much have to be running Transcendence. And that limits the rune pool. So this could be a thing where they get the 60% CDR and they have Transcendence and it's great, everything's fine. And you get the 5% bonus CDR from the part in the tree for inspiration as well.
Yeah, and then you get basically Earth Ezreal.
You basically get Earth Ezreal, yeah. But the only issue with that being that it means the item's less item efficient, where it gives you a flat amount of mana, it's useful, it gives you a large amount of bonus AG, but at that point you need to be building things like QSS into Mercurial Scimitar, Blade of the Rune King, something to give you that much more survivability for lifesteal, because sure you have a shield, but that shield's got a downtime of like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
You need something to sustain up in fights. You need something like Blade of the Rune King to shred through tanks. So
And to be fair,
I feel like Essence Reaver delays where Ezreal needs to be. And it's fine to go if you go like, I need a 6th item, what do I go? Essence Reaver. But I don't think it's going to be a big item spike for him.
Yeah. So basically, Ezreal stays on the same build, and
I don't think his build's going to change at all.
yeah, and so we're having all these AD carries pushed into the late game. We have some AD carries who are going to be better early game, like the Lucian, as they were. But overall, Ezreal should probably be one of the best laning AD carries coming up, or at least
Yeah.
early to mid game AD carries that we have.
But
And late
the
game,
way you succeed against Ezreal is by just pushing him in hard. And people like Sivir, Lucian can probably do that. So
yeah, but at the same time, you can just pick up a Karma and kind of mitigate that.
yeah, that's fair. You just go Karma, you go. Even Lulu and Zyra can do exactly that, but Zyra isn't a champion I expect to see anytime soon.
No,
But
not really. But
it's just that was really what we saw when Karma was the number one support. That's what people did. They went Lulu and Zyra to try and contest them.
yeah, so I will be interested to see where Ezreal goes. I think they do have to nerf him, or at least his build to some extent, because it's so.
I don't think
unique.
you nerf the champion. Yeah, I think the champion himself is balanced. It's his build that causes issues.
But the problem is, like, if you nerf the build of Ezreal, you're hurting a lot of people that are not Ezreal. Like, if you nerf Trinity Force, you're nerfing top laners with Trinity Force.
So what's the one item that Ezreal builds that no one else in the game builds?
I guess Mana Immune, yeah.
The Mana Immune's the item you nerf, exactly. You've hit it right on the head. The only item
but why
that you
don't
can
you-
nerf
but why
that will
don't you-
only nerf Ezreal.
Yeah, but why don't you just nerf Ezreal then?
Because I believe that Ezreal, if he's like, for example, in a world that Ezreal doesn't go Mana Immune, an example in a world where Ezreal isn't building these exact items, he's not overpowered. It's the synergy of all these items together that causes the issue. So
But
you
like,
can take away you can take away his numbers, but it's like you can take away 50 damage from his Q at level 1. Make it do 1 damage at level 1 in his Q. It just means that when he hits Mana Immune, that percentage current mana damage, plus the percentage mana from the Seraph's Embrace, plus that from the Essence Reaver or whatever,
But-
is still going to be providing all the damage to that to make it necessary for him to build it. It just means that his early game's a little bit worse.
yeah, and I mean,
I don't think his early game's the problem.
well,
It's his
I
late
think
game that's the
his
problem. He
mid-game
seems
is.
unbeatable in the late game.
I think I mean, the thing is, I do think that AD carries are gonna spike a lot higher now with the new items.
If they can spike over the top of a late game Ezreal with the double tier build, then I'm excited to see this new patch. And I'm excited
I
to see
don't
it in
think
action. But
necessarily
from what
it
I've
can
seen,
spike.
I don't think it does.
I think like some AD carries will be able to. I think Jin could be.
Perhaps.
But you can nerf him a bit. I'm fair with that. But I think having a late game spike for Ezreal is a good thing. I do think, like, as I said, you can nerf it a bit, but you can, like, having Ezreal be a late game scaling AD carry is a good thing, I think.
I think it's fine to have him be a late game scaling AD carry, but to have him like half health, a bruiser champion with 1 Q, because he's got these two items that give so much synergy together, is a bit too much.
So
I
I
think
guess
his late game. I think he's overtuned with his late game damage. So you need to nerf the like. I can imagine what they could do is just say, the Mana Immune passive. I think it's currently 3% of current mana as bonus damage. 2% of current mana. He expends mana less quickly, but he does significantly less damage because that's like, that could be 30, 40 less damage from having done that because of the amount of mana he buys.
All right. So, any other AD carry we need to talk about? Teemo, how's he doing?
No, let's no.
Let's not.
I just want to double check that there's none of this because like obviously there's some
I mean,
AD carries
I
like
mean-
Quinn that are not really talkable about here.
Actually, I want to talk about on AD carries a bit.
Okay.
Because
okay.
basically, like they always had that trough stage where they were building towards the Rage Blade, or even just got the Rage Blade and it's not really synergizing with anything. A lot of AD carries are gonna experience the same thing now with a crit build.
Yeah, I think the crit build is going to have a much bigger trough, and the Hail of Blades is going to fill that trough for the on-hit ADCs. Because you think about the on-hit ADCs, that what they're looking for generally, not that Vayne is an on-hit ADC, but this is an example. She's got a 3-hit passive, and she wants to get those 3 hits off. she's going to have 30 to 100% bonus attack speed on those 3 attacks should she choose Hail of Blades.
Mm-hmm.
So she's that much more likely to get that 3rd attack off, get that necessary attack off.
Yeah.
With Gwinsu's Rage Blade, you want to hit your Gwinsu's as early as possible. You want to hit the 6 stacks as early as possible. Getting that bonus attack speed on the first few attacks, that in turn buffs your attack speed because you're getting the bonus hits that add attack speed to your attack speed, attack speed to the base, means that you get that Gwinsu's spike that much quicker in a fight. And it fills that gap where you're trying to go, okay, 1 auto, now 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get... It removes half of that ramp up time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Because it's the 6-hit passive is what you need on Gwinsu's. So making it so that, like, the curve is normally like this. Now it's like this.
Yeah.
So it's significantly easier for ADCs to get to that and be that much more effective in fights in those early games.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't see the future right now for crit AD carries.
Unfortunately, neither do I. They're tank shredders, and people like Caitlyn will always be relevant if they are tank shredders.
But they also buffed Blade the Ruined King again. They gave it less gold, basically.
Yeah, so by buffing the ability to shred tanks, I think Jinx, for example, and Caitlyn, as late game hyper carriers when you've got big front lines that you need to fight, are going to be relevant. Especially if you've got somebody like an assassin mid laner who can go, I'm going to go against the back line, you fight the front line. That's where they're going to be most relevant. And they're not. This is the change they said they wanted to make. They didn't want AD carries to be one-shotting squishies. Yeah. They wanted it to take 3, 4 auto attacks to kill a squishy, and not just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Now that they've succeeded on that, they're trying by nerfing Infinity Edge. They've succeeded on that, but now they've given AD carries a whole different identity by changing Infinity Edge, by buffing the Last Whisper, and it's that I can fight the front line effectively. I'm going to be doing true damage to the front line, so I get, say I've got a 500 damage auto attack, and that would normally be nerfed to 250 damage by the
armor and everything. Yeah.
That normally be enough to 250 damage. Yeah, instead, I'm doing 300 damage. I'm doing 50 true damage. That's further into the game, it's even more. It's just, it can get absolutely nutty.
So...
Well, actually, no, it would be 200 damage and then 100 true damage.
So now that we have established that, the thing that I want to talk about is, like, where are the tanks coming? Where are those tanks coming from? Because the jungle is not going to have those tanks. I'm going to say right now, the best thing you're going to have is like Trundle maybe, but
Ornn is still relevant and will never cease to be relevant because of the percentage health damage on both his passive and W.
But can he take Scuttlecrab?
Yes, because he has percentage health damage.
And can he contest Scuttlecrab against different champions?
Yes, because he has CC.
I'm not too
he's
sold.
He's not. I'm not saying he's a jungler. I'm not saying that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is the big tanks that we're going to be looking at are people like Ornn in the top.
Okay. I thought you're talking about Ornn jungle all the time.
No. Because I agree with you that jungle is not where the tanks are going to be coming from. Yeah. So what I'm saying, where are the tanks going to be coming from? Ornn.
Yeah.
Ornn was never going to cease to be relevant. Sion is still relevant. The fact that they've given him now armor penetration on his E, not just for the first person you hit with the E, now for all targets hit by your Roar of the Slayer and anybody the minion hits as it's flung towards people. That's going to give him a lot of effective for fighting against tanks. And
so
people like Galio mid lane as well is still relevant to an extent. So there's definitely tanks to fight. And if tanks get buffed even slightly in the future, we're not going to see this meta where you just have to resort to playing on-hit Varus with your ultimate as utility to try and help, or an Ashe to be able to pick off squishy members. You have ADCs that can effectively fight the front line. It's not going to be like Season 4. Remember we watched the LCK finals from Season 4 together, back when I believe it's Champions, and it was just Mundo and Maokai that survived until they were the last member of the team and still survived for another 20 seconds before the fight ended. Just because nobody could kill them.
This reminds me of Cola from Starhorn Royal Club back then.
Oh god.
Anyway,
it's like every single tank was just singed but tanky.
Yeah. So, yeah. Honestly, I do think there will be a rise of tanks in the mid lane. There will be a rise of tanks in the top lane. Uh, Even though we already have tanks, but I think Maokai is gonna make maybe a resurgence.
I
Um,
mean, you love your Maokai. You love yourself some Maokai, don't you?
do I?
You consistently end up coming to me and telling me how Maokai is one of um, the
No,
best tanks in the game in terms of his ability to affect the game competitively.
and to be fair, I still do think that like new Maokai with his new ultimate, like new. I mean, it's 2 seasons ago, but you get what I mean. Like I do think his new ultimate is relatively crazy because basically it means if you're walking forwards, nobody can get to your backline.
It's just his laning is so much weaker now,
Yeah.
especially when you have to use the brushes to make your saplings do damage.
Mm.
It's a lot easier to play around as a laner, and you can't just go, I'm going to throw my sapling to help clear the backline of minions because it does damage on impact, then explodes and kills them. No, an enemy champion can just get in the way of that,
Yeah.
and then suddenly, oh no, you just lost 3 minions.
Yeah. So after at the end of this segment, I want to do one thing. Who's gonna be who is Rift's next Scion? Because Scion basically came back from basically nowhere and became one of the best top laners in the current meta as a tank. So who's gonna be that tank that's gonna come back now?
Okay, in terms of tanks, particularly
Yeah.
tanks, I I'm hesitant to say this, but Poppy,
Oh no.
because Poppy's ultimate was recently changed to the point where it leaves enemies targetable when you knock them up. They nerfed the resistances a bit on her W. Uh, they've now rebuffed her movement speed because they realized they cut it a bit too much. It's going to take some time, but I believe competitively we could see Poppy come back, especially when if you're looking at ADCs being really strong in those early to mid game skirmishes. Having a Poppy there to go, you can't get on my backline, or these ADCs can't dash forward and be able to shut somebody down and slam them into a wall in those phases is going to be so relevant, especially when you can pick somebody off by knocking them up. Having that 0.75-second knockup where they're targetable throughout that entire time, just busted and get rid of them, could be very relevant.
Mm-hmm. Can't really disagree that much. I'm thinking right now if I have one. I mean, I guess Gragas could come back. Honestly, I do think he brings a lot of utility. His carries are going to be relatively important. I do think he's going to go into the top lane in this sense because I don't think he can really go for the jungle anymore. We got another Runic Echoes nerf now.
Yeah.
So I don't think Gragas is a good jungler right now, but I think in the top lane, he can provide a decent amount of wave clear. He can provide that huge ultimate for the later fights or for the mid game skirmishes. I do think Gragas has potential.
I want to see a meta in which we can see tanks able to go for the Rod of Ages in the top lane again. Like Gragas, cool. Like Maokai. So they can provide more damage as the game goes on, but still be tanky.
Yeah, but not honestly, not be as tanky as they sometimes are these days.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with them not being these big, huge hyper tanks because we're not going to see.
And one more, Shen. I mean, we did see some Shen, but like with all of those jungle fights, Shen is going to be invaluable. I think right now.
The thing is, though, a lot of these fights that we've been discussing are going to be happening pre-level 6.
I mean, I guess yeah. But after that, I think he's going to be quite good.
I can see him considered.
Anyway, we're approaching the 2 hour mark, so let's wrap up our topics here.
Yeah.
Next up, we're gonna talk about the champion roadmap. So there's gonna be coming some champions. We do have
it's your boy Pyke.
We got the teaser for Pyke.
So I've played him. He's really interesting. Pyke, in terms of a support that can carry the game, is such an interesting concept where if you kill somebody with your ultimate, your ADC or whoever got the last hit on them gets full kill gold, but you also get the full kill and you get kill credit. His ultimate is far too nutty right now, or it scales far too well to the point where your execute which is just available at will if somebody's below a certain point, is stronger than Darius's and doesn't involve a stack system. You just have to have them low enough.
Oh my.
And it resets instantly to the point where not only does it reset to the point where you can just use it again, it's a dash. So I can go kill this guy, kill this guy, kill this guy.
Or kill this guy, and then jump on another guy who's maybe not gonna die, but you know.
And you can chase down the final kills. But the other thing about it that I found really amazing as well is just how like it's half HP in the late game is pretty much the cut off on most squishies. I got a one-click quadra kill in one of my games I played as him, where it was just they were. I went invisible, I looped around the back, and I just flash ulted and got 4 people instantly because they were all sieging up a tower and I flanked them. That was it. It was just one-hit quadra kill. So... It was absolutely nutty, and if you can start to get him rolling as a support, you can start getting kills, you can start getting that gold behind you.
I mean,
he is a serious threat in the late game. He scales really well.
I would like to see him in jungle more likely, because
unfortunately his cooldowns are far too long. That his clear speed is awful.
Okay, so the problem I have with support, especially in competitive, is you often leave the lane to give XP over. You often give kills over because it's better in the hands of your carries. So I don't see him succeeding as a competitive support unless he's massively overtuned.
To be fair, if we look at people like Thresh and Leona, they do exactly the same thing where they just roam mid.
Yeah, but Thresh and Leona don't have to get the kills, don't have to get the experience. They just have to be relevant by locking down kills for their liners.
And you can do that. You can do that on him still, but it's once level 6 comes that you're looking to secure kills for yourself, which is just literally I'm gonna last hit and execute somebody in a fight, which means that somebody else in my team gets the kill secure, and I also get the 300 gold. So you get an extra like 150, depending on how many people get the assist. You can get like an extra 250 gold onto somebody from that. It can be very, very useful come those later stages. It's not even it's not even 250 more. You get the assist gold, which could be 150, 50, anywhere in between. And then you get the 300 gold on top of that as an item that gets dropped into your inventory. So the last thing I want to talk about in terms of Pyke is that pretty much you're not going to see him in many other roles. He's far too squishy, his wave clear's awful, and his early trading is pretty bad because he can't build health.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give you enough AD from building health to really be relevant to go, oh, I'm going to go for Black Cleaver and it's great.
Anyway, so that's our thoughts on Pyke. Honestly, the one thing that I'm kind of worried about is like if we're gonna have like a meta where all of these mage supports and supporty supports are going to be relevant, and he's not going to really do anything against those, and then they buff him to oblivion, and then they nerf everybody else because the meta is kind of fucked, and then he just ends up becoming, I don't know.
Just watch what you can do in the late game. It's going to be astounding.
So,
the other reworks, I believe, Aatrox, Akali, and I think there was one more. Nunu, right. Aatrox has been desperately in need of a rework since around Season 3 World Championship. I believe the last person who consistently played him to a good degree before he was gutted was Cyanide.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he was the only person who played him at all, I think.
And like he's found some relevance in terms of the lower tiers of competitive play. You look in like the UK leagues, some of the lower European leagues, and he's been played competitively in the top lane, and he's been doing well. But he's either ridiculously oppressive or useless, and very little in between. And that's indicative of a badly balanced champion.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they're going to move away from this sort of drain tank style and try and give him more identity away from that. He has lifesteal.
I mean, he's basically supposed to be melee Vladimir.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's working.
No, it's not. It's either you make him do significantly less damage and give him more healing, or you give him a lot less healing and significantly, well, no,
Mm.
a lot less healing and a little bit more potential to outplay people and do more damage in those senses.
Yeah.
Yeah, Akali is just a nutty champion that feast or famine, she gets Gunblade and just wrecks your entire team, or she does nothing the entire game, one or the other. So again, that's another champion that's poorly
they're
balanced.
removing a lot of these feast of famine type of things. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. Maybe Trent.
And then Nunu's just an archaic champion that needs to be changed. I mean, his passive,
and he needs,
his passive just 6 months ago was just, if you land 5 auto attacks, your next spell is free.
Hey, honestly, like they need to like give him a Scion type rework.
Yeah, but the thing is, Scion lost any kind of identity he had when he got reworked. Scion
Maybe
kept
more of an
zero
Urgot,
of what made
Urgot
Scion
type,
Scion.
Urgot type rework, I guess.
An Urgot type rework would be interesting, where it keeps the core ideal of the champion as this big creepy dude who is kind of he was the executioner, I believe, in terms of his lore, so it makes sense to give him this execute ability. So the idea of a kid riding a Yeti is a great fantasy that they can have, a great power fantasy that they can have, and they just need to execute on it and make sure it's interesting to play.
Honestly, like maybe have an ability where he stomps people into the ground for a bit. Villager style, though.
Oh god, yeah, just drop a pot on their head or something. Bowling ball.
Yeah. But you get what I mean, like have him be like this big dude that just crushes people basically.
Because right now it's just this big white thing that, like, you hear Nunu, and a lot of people when they see Nunu, they just go, Nunu's the Yeti.
Yeah.
They don't even think. That's what it is. Nunu is a Yeti. It just happens to have a kid on his back. No one knows the kid's name. No, Nunu's the kid. Willump is the Yeti.
Yeah.
And it's just a poorly designed character.
Yeah, you could have him like throw snowballs or something from his back.
Yeah, because currently it just looks like Nunu's going rah. Well, so again, Willump's going rah, and and then the snowball comes out of his mouth when really there's a kid with a backpack full of snowballs that does nothing.
Even have it be like Corky's Gatling gun, where you have like multiple snowballs. could be interesting. Could be fun. I do think they should kind of keep some of that monster centric thing. Although I do think the like feast is a bit of, is it feast? No, it's the other one. The Q is the, I don't remember.
The Q is the feast. The W is the blood boil.
Wait, no, feast is
feast Shogat's
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what
it's
is
chomp or something like
chomp?
that.
Okay. I think consume. Yeah, exactly. So some type of that should come back in, because otherwise
I'd like to see a massively reduced damage version of it able to be used on champions. So like it does damage to objectives. It does increase damage to objectives and minions.
So basically more like Rek'Sai.
Yes. More in tune with Shogath in terms of the fact that he does true damage to minions and monsters, but he does magic damage to champions. Well, he did used to do magic damage to champions, at the very least. They changed it to true damage later on. But the way Shogath's old Ultima was before he became ridiculous, where he can just one-shot somebody. You see him just still, even now, go, okay, W, you're silenced, so now you can't get out the way of the Q, and now I land 2 autos and eat you and you're dead.
Yeah.
And there's no counterplay to that other than not getting hit by a cone ability.
Yeah. An instant cone ability.
An instant cone ability.
I mean, to be fair, his W used to be the like craziest part of his kit when he was building AP and basically chunked people to half health just by silencing them. Like, it was pretty crazy. Anyway, I think that's pretty much what we have for the champion roadmap. So, last part of the show, it's good news, everybody. So, a couple of news coming through. We do have some rumors that Ziv might actually join either EDG or RNG.
What was the second team, sorry?
EDG or RNG.
RNG, okay. Yeah, RNG's been running between Let Me and ZZ Tai, so it'd be interesting to see them pick him up. EDG obviously running Ray quite successfully, so it'd be a surprise to see them pick him up, but I can definitely see RNG doing that.
Basically, it's rumored that he's gonna go to a high-profile Chinese team, as far as I know.
Snake.
Hey,
Give me
So I kind of
Snake.
want to, with that, discuss like the pipeline of LMS talent going to the LPL because
Hmm.
I mean we had in the past had like Korean talent go to the LPL, but they have recently gone a lot more for some of the LMS talent because basically they already know Chinese, so they can already communicate very well. China already thinks that Taiwan is within their
China's
borders.
little brother. Yeah.
No, within their borders.
Um,
I mean, to be fair, Hong Kong and
without
Macau
getting
already are.
political, yeah. Without getting political, it's just like it's China Junior.
Yeah, like
Uh, but yeah, Ziv going to China would be really interesting because AHQ have had an awful split.
yeah.
Absolutely, it's the worst split they've had. I think they finished fifth behind Marchi 17,
Let me find
G-Rex,
that out for
uh,
you.
yeah, Marchi 17, G-Rex, Flash Wolves, and I think the other team would have been J Team.
Mad.
Hmm?
Team Mad.
Team Mad. Okay, maybe that's
Or
a
sorry,
rebrand.
Mad
It's a
Team.
team I'm
Mad
Mad
Team.
Team. Maybe that's a rebrand and I'm not been aware of it
I mean,
because
let
that's
me
not a
find
team I'm
that
familiar
out
with.
for you as well.
Because you can just click on the roster, name a couple players on the roster, and maybe it'll tell you.
Mad Crew Esports now. Liang, Benny. No, it's not an old roster, I think.
Okay, so that's just a new roster that's come through and managed to be better than AHQ.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
it tells you what's been going on for AHQ.
Yeah. And got 3
No.
out by G-Rex, but beat Machi actually.
Um, G-Rex were the second best team in the LMS, and AHQ's
I mean,
always been that second best
Mad
team.
beat Machi.
Right. G-Rex has been the second best team in the LMS this year.
Yeah.
It's always been AHQ's spot, and now it was a two-horse race between those two. So it was
Yeah.
really interesting to see how far AHQ has fallen. So Ziv, who was a really good top laner and has been a carry for AHQ in the past, going to China now would definitely make sense. But it kind of comes to this point where it's like the LMS is becoming less and less relevant as a region beyond the top team.
Mm-hmm.
No team has ever shown up internationally other than TPA and the Flash Wolves.
I mean, AHQ has won some games. I think they even made it out of the group stage once.
But I think they've made it out of the group stage just like once, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, I believe they got knocked out in the quarterfinals.
Was it? Yeah. No, wait. EDG still made it through groups that year.
Yeah.
Against like when they had Samsung White and EDG and AHQ in the same group. They still made it through, I think.
Because
EDG
versus AHQ was...
EDG lost to, I think, OMG in the semis, right? And the quarters.
I can't remember the exact result, but I know that AHQ's been struggling regardless for a few seasons in terms of... They've not been able to top the Flash.
I mean, that was season
for a long
4,
time.
so...
Yeah, like they've been struggling.
Their glory
for
days are behind them.
The glory days are behind them, but the glory days were glory days of being second place.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's not too far to fall,
They
but at the
are-
same time, it's a long way to fall.
They are.
They've fallen
Let's
into
put it like
relative
this: they are
obscurity.
H2K without the glamour of going to semifinals.
Yeah, they never had a Forgiven or a Febiven that was seen as being the best in their region. They were just kind of West Door and 4 other guys for a long time.
Mm. We had Ziv, and Ziv was absolutely phenomenal. Like, if you look at some of his plays, just the problem right now I have is like I want to say type Kled Ziv into YouTube, but there is no highlight clip for that.
You should make it.
I mean, there
Link
is
it on the channel,
the game is there, and if you click it and go like to 3 minutes or so, that it is there, but there's no highlight clip for that single play.
Yeah, we should make that clip and then shove it on a video and put it in the description.
Or something. Anyway, other than that, like he's done really well in the LMS, and well, it's gonna be curious.
It's looking to be the point that if you're not on Flash Wolves, maybe you're looking to leave Taiwan. And I could see them going to China, and at this point, it's like China is probably going to start making an argument that they shouldn't count as imports.
Yeah, because basically it's I get that the political situation is kind of weird because like at Worlds, we're gonna be again in in China at Worlds this year, right?
I believe so.
And
Actually, no. Last year was in the Bird's Nest Stadium, so I'm not sure it's going to be Worlds in China this year. I think it's in Busan.
wait, was it in
I
China
might be
last
wrong,
year?
but I think they're going back to Korea this year.
Oh yeah, they were in China last year. I remember now.
It was the Bird's Nest Stadium was the
Yeah,
finals.
yeah, I'm stupid. Um, but yeah, it's really hard to say because first of all, we already have like it's not the LMS is not only Taiwan, it is Hong Kong and Macau as well, and they are legitimately don't even put claim to being an independent nation. Only Taiwan puts the claim in as an independent nation, and even they are not recognized by the UN. So at that point, you can only. I'm pretty sure any.
I'd have to check this, but I think the way the riot ruling works is you declare yourself for your region.
That is clear, but like,
So
you
if they
declare
declared
yourself,
themselves for the LMS, they can't then go and be.
But the problem is, I'm pretty sure anyone from those regions can get Chinese like mainland Chinese citizenship.
That's fair.
And well, at that point,
Rolling in the money.
yeah, like what really is the claim against them being able to not count as an import?
But at this point, it's like the UK saying that any UK players should count as imports into the European region. It's
Well, but Swiss players
slippery
aren't.
slope. Pardon?
Swiss players aren't imports.
Swiss players aren't. Okay, yeah, that's. Are there any Swiss players?
I don't know, but they wouldn't be imports.
Because Russia's players are borderline counting as imports because they're not allowed to play in Germany.
Yeah, but like, I mean, to be fair, that's just logistical. But like, there's other nations within Europe that aren't part of the European Union that are not counted.
Turkish players don't count as imports, so yeah, I'll take that. Turkish players, Turkey, I believe, is not in the EU currently, and they do not count as imports.
Not even as
because Holy Phoenix
European.
Played in the Challenger Series without being an import.
I mean, Turkey doesn't even count as European, really.
Yeah, it's
like
borderline.
It's borderline
Asian.
Africa,
Asia.
Borderline Asian, yeah.
I think it's Africa still, but it wants to be part of Europe.
I'm never sure if the like basically the island where Saudi Arabia and everything is on is Asia or Africa.
Yeah, I think it's still Africa.
Okay.
Because like I think just north of like that is like Iraq, Afghanistan, which I believe is still Africa, and then it's the moment you hit Pakistan that's Asia.
Okay, I'm not sure, but yeah, basically it's a rough situation with the LMS, and then they're not getting the financial support they need. They're not getting.
There's not even an English broadcast of it in the end.
Yeah,
honestly, everybody wants to see an English broadcast of it, an official Riot one. There's been hundreds of viewers going to like unofficial streams of the LMS because they want to watch the LMS. Right? It should be taking a hint by now and making an English broadcast of the LMS.
The only problem is they already like. Do you know how much a broadcast, like an actual Riot broadcast, costs?
Yeah, I understand that.
I mean, the LPL is already struggling to keep up like about 5,000 viewers most of the time, so it's not really feasible.
Honestly, I think you can just tack it onto the OPL broadcast, similarly to what they did with the LPL initially, where they bring in a few extra casters in the OPL, get them to cast from the OPL studio with a clean feed, and then you've got an LMS broadcast. And I don't believe that it's going to be on at the same time of day, so I don't believe there's any
But the LMS was
overlap.
LMS was always at the same time as LCK and LPL.
But OPL.
Oh, that's what you mean.
I don't think there's any overlap with the OPL.
I was more thinking in terms of viewership because, like, who's gonna watch the LMS, like, while LCK or LPL is going on from the West?
Who's gonna watch the LPL while LCK is going on? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
there'll always be people wanting to go, ooh, Flash Wolves, or ooh, AHQ, or ooh, G-Rex eventually.
Yeah, if they ever make it to Worlds.
Don't jinx it, but this might be the year that people find out who G-Rex are, because I believe if G-Rex show up to Raze Gaming, we had so much hope for Raze Gaming last split. Oh, I was so upset when they choked in playoffs and didn't make Worlds, because they looked like the better team than Flash Wolves. Flash Wolves have been choking all split. Casa had been benched for internal issues. They'd been benching MMD due to internal issues as well, and they'd lost so many games earlier in the
Like
split.
that's
All they needed was like 2 more series, and they'd been guaranteed to be in finals. But they choked so hard, they lost to like Hong Kong Attitude,
and then they lost to HQ as well.
yeah, they lost to HQ, who were really slumping back then. It was so disappointing. But Raze Gaming that's a horror story because they were so good for so long, and then right at the end it all went awry. It was similar to what happened with Immortals a few seasons ago, where they were almost undefeated, and then in playoffs they just choked.
Yeah.
So I honestly believe that this is the split. We could see G-Rex make Worlds and have their first shot at showing up on an international stage. I'm excited for them. They've got Toys as their coach, the former world champion, legendary Oriana player from the Season 2 TPA roster.
Toys I'm not... I don't think I'm too harsh when I say Toys has not been that relevant in a long time.
He hasn't been relevant as a player, but I've been hearing what he's been doing behind the scenes with that roster, and he seems to have been helping quite a lot.
All right. Next news story. We have Kakao returning to Korea.
Hey, it's the boy. Really deserves it. He's been working his ass off around the world. He went to China. He managed to wake worlds with, I believe it was Invictus Gaming at the time. Had the game on Skarner where he did 500 damage in a 30-minute game, and was ridiculed by the community and told that everybody told him he was washed up. Took a couple seasons out, went to Europe, made second place with Misfits, took SKT to 5 games. The SKT got took to 5 games by that same roster, but that was in the summer split.
Wait, that wasn't Maxwell.
Yes, I was correcting myself.
Okay.
He performed really well on that roster. He managed to do amazing things with the roster, and he managed to get them a lot of good results. And they looked so good with them.
To be fair, his time at Misfits was not as successful.
Not as good as with Max as well, but they claimed it was due to issues with communication. But he still showed up. He looked like one of the best junglers in the league that split. And people were so shocked when they got rid of him because it's like, oh, the best jungler in the splits gone. But the team overall did benefit from it because of the communication. Then he went to Turkey and got to the finals of Turkey with a roster that, on paper, should not have been making finals because he hard carried them every single game to get them there. And he looked so strong on that roster. Again, didn't have the communication around him to be able to do what he usually does and lead a team, but at the same time was still able to lead them. And now, having done all this around the world, has the opportunity to go back to Korea, be on Jinna, a team with multiple carries like Teddy. We've seen Justice actually start performing in the mid lane as well, and things like Azir. This is the opportunity for him to prove that he's still a good player.
So Jinna, it's looking relatively interesting, all things considered. I do think they could make playoffs this time around. It's if the teams that have been struggling in spring are still struggling, like KSV and SKT.
Is Jinna, what did they finish? 5th or 6th around that point? I think it was 6th.
No, 6th was Rocks Tigers.
So 7th.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's not brilliant, but at the same time, it was really competitive around that middle of the pack.
Yeah.
But 1 or 2 series was enough to put you in the playoffs.
With Kakao. Could be interesting. I do want to see Teddy succeed, so...
Yeah, Teddy really was a big surprise for Jinna.
Wasn't there...
Until Bang really started performing about halfway through the split and ended up being this god tier ADC, Teddy looked like the best ADC in the LCK at the time. Yeah. And then Praise started showing up more, Bang started showing up more, and it became a lot more competitive. But those early stages, he was just showing up every single game.
Yeah. So what I kind of wanted to talk about the story around the story as well is a lot of Korean talent, like not as much as has been going out, but a lot of Korean talent is cycling back into Korea now. We did see some like lower level players that come back, like Khan, who then became really good in Korea. We've seen a lot of people who have been doing phenomenally in in foreign regions, and
like Huni,
like Huni, like Kakao now coming back. We do have seen Spirit actually going. Is he still on Africa?
Spirit is still in Africa, but he was starting as a sub a lot of the time behind Mowgli.
Okay, but still,
When he played, he was really good, but Mowgli was starting a lot more games than we expected.
yeah, and they've been going to the LCK semifinals. So leaving Korea is not a death sentence anymore, which is, I think, a really good thing.
Okay, there's some players like Deft who, when they left Korea, would always have a space welcome when they came back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a Piglet situation where once you're gone, you're not welcome to come back. But there's some players I still believe if Imp wanted to come back to Korea now, he wouldn't have a spot.
Mm-hmm. Like he hasn't been doing anything for so long.
No, LGD's been really having a rough time for the past, God, since season 5 Worlds. To be honest,
Yeah,
they've had a really rough time.
yeah. So 2 seasons of basically irrelevancy. Same for, I mean, there's still some players who were welcomed back. Some of them have been doing well, like Mata. But question is, would a Dandy be welcomed back? And I'm not too sure about that.
I think you need to be, like you said, performing in another region to be able to come back. Because you're not going to see GBM come back now. You're
maybe not even necessarily performing, but at least show signs that you're still relevant. Like,
but look at the players who have come back. Like you said, Khan initially. Khan is a player who he proved behind the scenes with training camps.
Exactly. That's
solo
what I mean.
queue, that he earned his spot back. But he hadn't been to other regions. If you're looking at players who have been to other regions, like I said, GBM or Frozen,
yeah,
they have not proven anything. You look at like one example that was a weird one. It was Veritas going from Unicorns of Love to CJ Entus in the Challenger Series, where he just got welcomed back after one split where he played mediocre.
Yeah.
And there's just, other than that, it's always been a player who was in the top 3 teams in their region, then going back to Korea.
Yeah. So we'll have to see who else is coming back at some point. We already
Impact. I could honestly see Impact going back at some point, but I think he is NA now. He's indoctrinated, but he would have a spot back if he wanted.
Yeah, I think he would. Have a tier 3 team spot like.
I think honestly tier 2. I think you could get him on a team like Afrika and it would be fine.
Yeah, Afrika. Really?
Yeah, I could see him on Afrika.
Okay. I was thinking more like, I don't know, Rocks Tigers.
Rocks Tigers is a tier 2 team.
Oh, I was thinking more like tier 1 is like, contesting for the champion. Tier 2 is making playoffs, and tier 3 is like below playoffs, basically.
Because so Afrika this split became a tier, trying to contest for a tier 1 team. It was one split, so I'm not willing to say they're a tier 1 team yet.
Okay.
If they look the same in summer, they'll be a tier 1 team. But generally, they've been a tier 2 team.
The thing is, I wouldn't like if you go to second place, I wouldn't change much, or at least unless you have like a real in on some massive talent or a really good player.
Because it's like there's a lot of teams that have made second place in the region but weren't a tier 1 team still. For example, we talked about Misfits. Misfits wasn't a tier 1 team in that region. We talked about if I'm looking at Origin when they went against G2 when they had Expeke as ADC. That's not a tier 1 team. They just happened to make to finals because everybody else shat the bed.
I guess. So, last story. This has been out there for quite a bit. I think it's more than a month now. And I just wanted to talk about this because I think it's relatively interesting. So we have Team Liquid partnering up with SAP now. SAP for the uninitiated is a software company from Germany. They have been making basically the biggest logistics. They build the biggest logistics software that is used all around the world, and
Germany and logistics in the same sentence is born to be a success.
Yeah, but you get what I mean. Like they're very data driven, and they're basically partnering up with Team Liquid to analyze data more in League of Legends.
Trying to moneyball the league, I think it was how you put it before.
To some extent, I did say that, but there's another aspect to it. Basically, on one hand, you have Moneyball, where basically you're trying to get players that are underappreciated, but at the same time, statistics can help you a lot of to improve your own team as well that you already have. And I think that's where Team Liquid is looking at more like in this first wave.
Yeah, it's one of the things I wanted to talk about when you mentioned this was actually Clutch Gaming and the way they've been doing things, because they've been very similarly trying to use a lot of statistical analysis in their pickup of the players when they picked up their roster in the first place. They tweeted out a bunch of statistics about Febiven, saying he's pound for pound the best mid laner that they could have picked up, which was interesting to me. But
I mean,
the way they did this was hiring every single Twitter analyst possible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't handled very professionally. They literally just went, "We're open for any Twitter analyst to join as long as they can prove that they can make fancy graphics." People made fancy graphics, they got hired. Clutch Gaming went nowhere.
I mean, nowhere. You say nowhere.
They performed decently, but I don't think it's down to the money ball.
I'm pretty sure they perform a bit up above their league, but
yeah, I would not put that down at all to the statistical analysis sides of it. The whole thing that ended up happening is their bot lane way overperformed, and it allowed for Lyra to be covered for because Lyra was underperforming, and it really suited the meta at the time when they were performing, and they were able to make some upsets over people like TSM who choked hard against Clutch. TSM should not have lost that series. Yeah. TSM was a team that they deserved to lose it in the fact that they made enough mistakes, but they did not play like the usual TSM style, and they got punished hard for that, and they lost the series in dramatic fashion. And it was the first time they'd ever not made the finals.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of interested to see how much how you would SAP can help you at acquiring statistics and mangling statistics and everything, and making special statistics, which for example, there's as far as I know in basketball, there's a score called the defense score, which basically amalgamates a bunch of stats into one.
Okay. It would be interesting to see more statistics like that. I think there was a statistic they did for top laners, which they used to justify entirely why Vizicachi got MVP of the split.
Not good.
Yeah, it was just that they made one statistic and went, "This is why Vizicachi's MVP."
Yeah.
6 weeks before they said Vizicachi was MVP.
Anyway, you always have to see what statistic, reading statistic is gonna be the thing that SAP can't help you with, really. They can provide you certain stats and can show you maybe where another team has a statistical advantage, but what that actually translates to on the Rift, that's where I think Team Liquid will have to put a lot of expertise in. I do think they have a decent amount of experience, and they can hire people who actually know what they're talking about to help with that. But
I mean, Liquid's always been good at making money and hiring players to make money. We looked at what happened at the start of the splitting, and one of the roster moves we didn't mention was Mickey to Golden Guardians from Team Liquid. So he's replacing High now in the mid lane. So they've managed to sell him for a profit, in spite of the fact that they picked him up in desperation and didn't use him once. Yeah. They've still managed to do something with him, and it just shows that they do good business. And now Mickey gets another chance to show that he's going to perform outside of Korea after being called toxic and getting replaced by the Rocks Tigers halfway through a split.
Yeah, so I think we pretty much covered the topic as best as we can.
Yeah, it's the first podcast. We're still trying to work out how much the shrink time is. I think we neared 3 hours on this one.
2:27. So we're actually relatively in our time that we set ourselves. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope you enjoyed Sin's face, my face, my one cleaning my nose that actually went out on stream, which you can put down to my mouse that constantly double clicks instead of single clicks. Was fun. Next week we will be back. It's supposed to be bi-weekly podcast, but next week is MSI finals are done, so we will want to talk about that. My name is Louis Behrman. Next to me was Stuart Sin McLeod, and we'll see you.